Good evening and welcome to the Village of Westmont special budget meeting for Wednesday, April 21st, 2010. And I'd like to have the clerk take the roll call, please.
Mayor Ron?
Here.
The clerk's here. Trustee Emery?
Here.
Trustee Fleming?
Here.
Trustee Forsley?
Here.
Trustee Klebanow?
Here.
Trustee Scott?
Here.
Trustee Seneca?
Here.
Manager Searle?
Here.
Finance Director Van Baga?
Here.
Economic Development Director and Assistant Manager Kimball? Here. Police Chief Mulhern? Here. Deputy Police Chief Gunther? Here. Public Works Director May? Here. Budget Analyst Parker?
Here.
IT Manager Liljeberg? Police Administrative Assistant Rice? Here. Human Resource Administrator Casey?
Good, thank you. Join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Very nice. It was one of our best. It's one of our best.
Oh, good. Just an opening comment to thank all the department heads who are represented here this evening, who have worked so hard trimming our budget and will continue to do so until the final product has been approved by the board. And I'm sure that many staff members in all departments also have been working very closely with their department heads to make all of these cuts that are necessary because of the dire state of our economy at the present time. We only hope that by this time next year things will begin to look better than they are right now. But our revenues are down, and we still are uncertain what the states may or may not do in terms of cutting back more of our revenue as a village. So all these things have to be taken into consideration, and takes a lot of time and effort on everyone's behalf to put that all together. So I want to thank everybody for doing that. Now I'd like to turn the meeting over to Ron Searle, who has some comments that he would like before Lisa gets into our budget discussion. Ron?
Thank you, Mayor. Just to kind of outline the order of business for today, tonight, and for tomorrow evening. You have a revised agenda for tonight's discussion. We are hoping to get through the Employee Benefit Sick Time Fund on the agenda. You'll note that the fire department is above that line. We are going to move that to tomorrow night because of the wake for former Chief Johannick. The fire department is participating in that this evening. So that is our goal. If we happen to get through Employee Sick Time Fund part of the agenda quickly, we'll probably skip ahead to a couple of the funds at the bottom. We would like to reserve enough time to have a discussion about the Vehicle Replacement Fund and the Capital Projects Fund and the water. So we think that we'd be better served to do that tomorrow evening. And then following tomorrow evening's workshop, then we would ask for an executive session for personnel. That is all I have to say.
Thank you. Lisa, would you like to
Thank you, Mayor Ron.
begin your discussion?
Thank you, Ron. We are going to resume in our general fund, general administration departments where we left off last week after our budget discussions. But before we get into the detail, I want to go over some updated figures that we have for updating the binder. If we can go to section 1 and look at our fund summary sheet. We have a new projected net now for the general fund that has actually improved by approximately $50,000. We are now at projected revenues of $18,655,025 and expenses of $18,903,390 for a projected net currently of $248,365. This reflects some of the changes that were discussed by the board, and we'll go over those items as well as some other changes that we've made to particular departments that we haven't discussed yet either. So we'll be getting into those, but we are at a negative $248,365 as of this meeting, the start of this meeting. We've also updated the expense comparison We are now at a change from the general fund of a negative $450,000 from last year's expenses. So that has increased as well, or actually improved, I should say decreased and by more. So that is a good thing. And those are updated, and you can see the new percent changes for any of the departments or divisions where we made some changes. The next section that I want to go to is in that same tab 1 behind preliminary cuts and considerations. There is a new sheet that has been added called Board Reduction Decisions. These are the items that were discussed at last meeting where the board gave some sort of direction to the staff that they had made a decision on a particular line item or activity. So what we have listed here at the top, the ones that say immediate reductions, it's a list of the items that were discussed and then the outcome. So where we have remain, that is the amount that remains in for that particular line item. Anything that was removed is in the removed column, and then we did put comments in accordance with the board's discussion. So when we look at something like the strategic planning services, that was decided to be removed completely. So you see the entire amount removed there. And where we have a split, you can see something like the Illinois Municipal League, where the decision was made for trustees to pay their own, however, to keep the money in for the mayor for his portion of that. So you will see the remaining portion and the removed portion, and then the comment for mayor only. The items removed totaled $37,700. That is part of what's reflected in the updated new amounts for the shortfall right now for the projected net for the general fund. What do we have immediately under that are items for discussion. There were some items that were brought up that were mentioned that we needed to discuss those or wanted to go over those again as we got further into the budget or another point in time. So in order to keep those here and keep a list of them so we can go back and discuss them, we have listed them here with the items. Everything is listed as remaining because no decisions were made, no direction was given, so there were no changes made in the actual budget document that's in front of you today. So that's just kind of an ongoing list of things that the board has expressed some interest in revisiting throughout this process. And we will continue to update this sheet after today's evening. If decisions are made, we will put those on there as well. And if there's items that we need to revisit, any of the board members, or any of the trustees, or anybody has anything they want to talk about, we'll put that on there again. So onward from there, those are the only updates that we have for general and overview. So we can turn to section 3, and I believe it is our third tab, which starts with the Information Technology Division, IT, which is where we left off on our last budget workshop. Did anyone have any questions before we get into this? Trustee Emery?
I would like to see, since you're going to be revising these continually back under legislation, when we talked about like the IML conference and certain chamber activities, State of the Village, the various things, we had talked about leaving in the funds for the mayor, but I would like to back in funds for our village manager to attend these, because it's important that he does from many aspects. So I think he should be covered, but the board will still pay for themselves.
Okay, definitely agree with that.
Well, she had on that part a question on the IML, a question mark about the attorney.
Right. Yes, we weren't sure if there was a direction given on for paying for the attorney's time at the IML. I know the village manager was going to look into that.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to contact the village attorney, but I doubt that he would object to removing it, but
Well, plus a lot of it is learning, and it's continuing legal education credits for an entire day, that type of thing. And if he learns something that benefits us, great. But my firm pays for me to go because it's general knowledge, and I think his firm should pay for him, not the village.
Okay. I will make a note of that, and then if we want to continue discussion, or if the board wants to make a decision on that, now or at any point in time, just feel free to give us direction on.
Could I add, and maybe defer to Ryan on this, are there any other, and maybe you would know even better, employees that should be going benefit the village? I mean, we're talking employees, I don't know, we could pick up
To
the
the
registration.
Illinois.
Yeah. I know Fred has attended and has picked up some things. I don't know.
Well, there's
So, I
a
mean-
treasurer's section, right? And the finance director is a treasurer. Most of the sessions are geared more generally towards elected officials.
Okay.
Yes.
I think a lot of the valuable information that they might pick up, they've probably already been exposed to it either through their professional associations or through the
Okay.
state, associations. I mean, that would be my opinion.
What about the attendance of the department heads? It's some of the professional meetings, some of the groups that they belong to. Have we left any of that in, or have we removed?
We have. And
in
we
their
were talking about
department.
that subject earlier today. I don't know that I have it immediately in front of me. We had gone through, the finance department had gone through and calculated a total of all the conference and training expenditures.
I don't have the sheet in front of me, but I
Have it?
do know the figures.
Okay, maybe you could,
The budget contains just over $100,000 in conferences and training. We do not separate conferences, what we would call conventional conferences, from just training, which could include a day seminar or bulletins or something that we get. Of the just over $100,000, which also includes things like basic training for police officers when we have vacancies, we have just over $18,000 that is actual conferences. The rest is training. So the majority of it, just over $80,000, is training.
So there is mandatory training that
Yes.
many of our staff members have to attend.
Correct. There's a lot of one-day seminars that provide continuing education units or mandatory recertification for things that we classified in the training. The conferences were more of associations, professional associations that had an annual conference that also had training at them.
Okay.
So,
the other thing to consider, particularly on the police and fire side, is just the liability risk that you would have if you didn't continue to pay for the ongoing training for those areas.
Yeah,
Some
but
of
those
that is
are-
mandated.
Those are budgeted in each of their departments and broken out, right?
correct. And when,
It's in that line item.
right, and when when I separated it and between the 18 and the 80, it's in the training portion, those day trainings, as opposed to the conferences.
Ron, since we went through and we're just revisiting some items in legislation, do you want to talk about the chamber and what Larry did?
Yes. We met last week, myself, the finance director, and the assistant village manager, went through the work program that the chamber had submitted and tried to identify and prioritize the aspects of that we thought were most important. And from that meeting, we came up with a couple of things to talk with the chamber director about. We met with him earlier this week, and I passed out an email from him that summarizes effectively the changes that we think would be acceptable in terms of what we are getting for our investment in there. The recommended cut by the Citizens Finance Advisory Committee was around, I think, $8,000, and we came up with cuts of about $13,700. And we eliminated the light pole banner program, dropped a couple of advertisements and publications, the Illinois Holiday Guide, the Westmont Map. Trying to think what else we cut. Those are the primary things. I don't know, Fred, do you remember any other items?
Two ads from like a total of 8,500 down to like 2,500 on the two publications.
Yeah, there were some reductions there as well. I forgot about that. So for the board's consideration, that was what we were able to come up with as
Yeah,
far as
that looks
reduction.
good, because I think the Citizens Committee just went from 58,000 to just taking, 8 sounded good, but this, Larry was good enough to really itemize it and work with you and say, here's what, a few things we can drop, but here's what we can still do for no additional fee. So I think that's really good, and
It was kind of more like we identified them and we said, can live with this? Do you have any strong objections to this being done?
Yeah.
And he really didn't, I think he agreed with the way we prioritize things.
And then that covers those 2 items in legislation where it looked to be 2 dues amounts. One was 1,400 and one was 800, I think.
One of those was an error.
Correct.
Yeah.
Duplication.
And we did.
And so I certainly recommend that we take this and cut 13.7 from the budget.
I think that's very workable.
Is there any objection or any further discussion that anyone wants on that? So we can take the recommendation, we'll put that on there, that is the board's recommendation at this point in time for immediate reduction of 13.7 in the chamber.
Good.
Did any of the trustees or the mayor or anybody have anything else before we go on now?
Nothing further.
Okay. All right, now we'll start with the IT division. Overall, for the IT division for fiscal year 10-11, we have total expenses of $578,530. That is a 4.1% increase from fiscal year 2009-2010, which is $22,770. One thing I would like to point your attention to is in the binder on the chart sheet. As most of the departments and divisions, you're seeing decreases from last year continuing. However, in IT, we had a couple of things that have happened. First of all, there's a lot of capital replacement in terms of equipment that is included in the IT division. So when you're looking at year-to-year operating expenses, it can get very convoluted with comparing a prior year because there might have been major replacements that were due in that fiscal year and now this year are not. That, if you look at fiscal year 2008-2009, the IT budget dropped from almost $778,000 down to $554,000. That's what happened. We have annual replacements for equipment that we did not have last year and didn't do, and we're still postponing those, although there are some things like the virtualization of our desktop that increased it a little bit, as well as having to replace the wireless link to Fire, which Glenn can explain. So you see a bit of an increase there, although overall there's still huge decreases in this budget from even 3 years ago. We were at $1 million, the majority of which was capital replacements and getting our equipment up to date. With all capital, when you postpone infrastructure, postpone replacements, particularly of equipment, at some point in time, you can no longer postpone it. You have to do something. It's going to fail or no longer be usable. We've seen some reductions and we've postponed things, but then this year we've got a couple of things that we're going to be doing in order to keep the everything running smoothly. And Glenn can explain exactly what we've got in the budget. So I'm going to turn it over to him. But I did want to explain that 4.1% increase from last year.
Yeah, the $1 million budget was the implementation of the voice over IP system that we did and the network replacements. We then came down to the $700,000 mark, which was the general operating fund to keep all the replacements going on a regular annual basis. And at that time is when the village came to us, asked us to cut 6%. We reviewed our entire equipment inventory. It was lasting way longer than what we originally anticipated, so we were able to drop it 28% last fiscal year and not do any replacements. The other reason why we were able to delay it is we were waiting for the technology for thin clients, the virtualization to catch up to make it worthwhile for us to move in that direction. So there was a couple things there working with us, along with just general reductions in technology, with technology getting cheaper. It also allowed us to make some adjustments last fiscal year. So going into this fiscal year, we have a couple things that we're looking at. One is the virtualization of our desktops. And although the first year we're not going to see any money savings from doing that, we're not seeing any money reduction. So what we're spending on the virtualization of a portion of our desktops would be spent on replacing the actual computers themselves on the user's desk. So what we're doing is changing the way they access our network from an actual computer to what is called a thin client, or a machine that isn't a computer at the desk. Long-term goal here is over the next 4 or 5 years, as the cost for that technology drops and we're able to implement it 100%, we should be able to see a reduction in staff in the IT department, because you're going to slowly take away the need to have that localized support at the desktop. We also don't maintain 150 separate machines anymore. You maintain 5 or 6 general, what are called images, that then get served out to those users. So it will allow us in the long run to save money. It's not costing us any more than it would to replace the machines now, but in the long run it will allow us to save money. Right now the return on investment is about even for what the licensing costs to what a desktop costs to replace. So the minimum savings we'll see in 4 or 5 years is reduction in staff, but that licensing, I think, is going to drop as well, so you'll continue to see that catch up. So the only other big item we really have in this budget, besides the wireless link to Fire, is our Microsoft licensing is up for renewal. We were on what was called a select agreement with the state of Illinois that we signed 3 years ago. We only rolled certain things into that. We didn't roll our server licensing into that. So what we budgeted for in this year, because the state has not negotiated their select agreement yet with Microsoft, is we put in the worst case scenario in the budget, which is the $35,000 approximately for a yearly renewal on our Microsoft licensing. Once that select agreement gets taken place with the state, we'll have a better idea on where that cost is going to come in at. But if we had to go with our own agreement right now, that's if the state does not do an agreement with Microsoft, that's what the cost will be. It should be less than that when it's all finalized and done. So we're budgeting for worst case scenario in the licensing part of that. And then the wireless link for Fire is just being done. Primarily, we have 3 links, one that's between Fire and the water tower, here in the water tower, and the water tower and the fire department. That equipment is end of life. You can't buy any replacements for it. If a link goes down, it's about 45 days to get a contractor out here, the equipment in place, and the link to be taken care of. So we don't need to replace all 3 links, which would be $17,000 a piece. We're just replacing one. We'll take those 2 antennas down and keep them as spares for the other 2 links. So in fact, what we're doing is giving us 2 in-house spares to prolong the life of those other 2 links. And actually what we're doing, we changed it after looking at this. We're actually replacing the link between police and the water tower, which is the first hop, and then using those 2 for the spares on the other 2.
Any questions?
What's the virtual hardware?
The virtualization hardware would be 2 servers, basically. So it's 2 $8,000 servers, and then the software is the software that which we'll use to push those clients out to what are called the thin desktops. Now, the other money-saving thing this year with doing the virtualization is we don't have to buy new hardware. What we're going to do is pull the hard drives out of the existing boxes that are sitting next to the desk and make those what are called thin clients. So we're saving $400 a desktop by reusing the equipment that's already there.
Okay. Is the, you've got here very low cost, but netbooks, 2 netbooks for economic development. Is that for the inspectors?
Correct.
Okay.
That allows them to get to the web interface that they use to track all of their tickets.
Right. The music downtown, is that the one that comes over the speakers, or is that the one that's on the phone?
That's all of the above.
Okay.
So that same system pays for the music downtown, the music on hold, the music you hear on cable. We used to pay about $400 a month for ASCAP and BMI fees.
Right.
And we switched from that years ago because they charge per speaker. Music only charges per music source.
Okay.
So since we're able to run it to all those places, it's only one charge.
Yeah, that's cheap, less than
Yes.
$100 a month for everything. Okay.
That's good.
Glenn, what's the HTA CAD yearly maintenance?
That's the CAD maintenance for the dispatch. Depending on where we go with consolidation, we budgeted for 6 months, 6 to 8 months of that in this year's budget. Some or all of that could go away next year depending
Okay.
on where we go with that direction.
And how about because a lot of them I know, but what's the MSI Harris?
That's our financial application. That's the yearly maintenance on the actual financial application.
Okay.
The only thing I just want to point out to everyone watching, between computer licensing and the maintenance, is what, 100, is that a 100?
most of it.
Yeah, 163,000 or 122,000 for computer licensing. I mean, that's a good chunk that you have to purchase and you're
We need
stuck.
to do business.
You have to do business. So you're kind of locked in there, and you got to get the maintenance agreement because of the cost, so those are two almost fixed costs that we need to have.
Correct.
And plus with all the specialty stuff, especially for police and fire, there's nothing we can cut on that, absolutely. not.
We did look at Google Apps and the other type of virtualized stuff, and it's not quite there yet.
Right.
You've heard Los Angeles switched, and some towns in Florida, Miami switched. They're not using the full suite. They're using the email. And we're so small, it would cost us more to switch to that than it would to stay locally. Once they get maybe the Office product there where it's usable on a wider basis, it may be money savings for us in the long run. But right now, we did look at that as well to try to save that $35,000 or a portion of that $35,000.
Glenn, with the new hardware for the virtualization, like, I'm probably saying this wrong, but will half of the thin clients be on one server and half on, or is one for business recovery, it's kind of a spare?
The two machines are redundant. So it's for disaster recovery.
So one is a recovery.
Correct. One will be located in one building, one will be located in another building, and then whichever one is active at the time will serve out those clients.
They automatically do backups and things like that, or is that a whole
That's all
different-
done already, and it continues that way. They mirror themselves, so they stay identical
Okay.
the entire time. So as you change something on one, it changes it automatically on the other. And we do that now with all of our data storage. It's redundant and then also backed up. So.
Right. Thank you.
Glenn, I think you did a great job, because even it's as lean as it can be on everything that it looks like you can be.
I'm so glad we did that phone system 3 years
So
ago.
that saved a lot of money.
But even your office supplies for the year of $500 is incredible.
Well, we looked at that. We had 1,000 in there last year, and we weren't even touching it. And I don't even know if we'll touch 500.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
I did want to know why last year, 2009 actual, insurance 2,500 and nothing budgeted this year.
that's yours.
Yeah, that's actually related to if we have a claim and we don't have anything, like that's if we have to pay a deductible. We don't have anything that's going through the department, and
That's our deductible amount.
yeah, that's our
Okay,
deductible.
so that it's covered under one big thing, doesn't have to be segregated.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, the tough one is salaries. Obviously, you show it at a freeze. With the small increments. You guys have been great about this, and I think, at least as far as I'm concerned, I think we gotta go with the freeze, and if we can cut other things and end up, at the end of the year with excess funds, the first place I'd like to see them go is to the employees who are riding the storm. So, that's my thought on it.
And just so you know, the general in our department especially is, you do what you have to do. It's a business just like anything else, and we deal with what comes in. You can only spend what comes in. And none of us like it, but, it is what it is, and we're willing to work through it just like everyone else is, so.
Well, it's never a 9 to 5 Monday through Friday job when you're in IT.
No.
That job doesn't exist.
Yeah, if you don't like
A
it,
9
you
to
don't
5.
be in it. Doesn't bother us.
particularly when you have 24/7 operations that rely heavily on technology and
And you don't get
communications.
holidays.
No, or weekends.
It just all
so-
goes away.
They're always on call, and we do actually stagger their schedules to accommodate
Kinda like
that,
being in
so that
Public
we
Works.
we have more customer service for our internal departments. So we try to accommodate their hours by the scheduling.
And hopefully we're, with what you've budgeted, that allows you to do what you do so well, and it's not where we're cutting things which would make your job even harder in addition.
We work very well with everyone and try to make sure that we maintain what we need to maintain and cut where we can cut without sacrificing the quality or the security of the network, so.
Glenn, can I ask you about the Citizens Response Portal?
Yes.
Is that for where they can get online and complain about the light out or something like that?
It's both things. It's the Web QA, which is where they can complain if a light is out, but it's also the multifamily tracking service as well. So it's two modules that make up the one cost.
Does that get used a lot for the complaints for lights out and stuff?
A lot.
A lot?
Yes.
Okay,
I
good.
see a lot, and I'm not even in that department, so.
Okay.
It is heavily utilized.
And it's utilized not just by the residents, we actually use it. So anything that comes in over the phone gets entered in that system. So we have a full database of everything that's being taken care of throughout the day and throughout the year. Yes.
Through that, okay.
Wow. Particularly
Yes.
for the multifamily, yes.
Yeah, we looked at some other towns that were doing multifamily, and their system's initial cost was over $100,000 with a maintenance fee that was at least 20 grand a year. And the system that we had just looked at, which was the Web QA, they had another module that were like, hey, this could probably work for this. And actually, that company is now marketing that module for this particular reason. It wasn't designed for that originally, but it's working out really well for the multifamily, which saved us a lot of money from what was out there.
Nice job, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Glenn. All right. On to our Economic Development Department. We have total expenses in ED of $699,610, which is 0.3% increase, $2,360 devoted primarily to an increase in health insurance that we see. Fred, there were some reductions in the department as well, so
Yeah,
I
we
can turn it over to Fred and.
Pleased to submit our budget for the board's slicing and dicing tonight, but before they start, we want to cough up a couple of other things here that we've been able to come up with in the meantime, given the tough finances that we've got. Over under conferences and training, the ED director did a bonehead thing and had a $20 charge in there 3 separate times for, I think it was the Illinois Association of Floodplain and Stormwater Management. So take out 2 of those $20 charges, there should be one $20 entry in there, not 3 separate ones throughout the listing there.
Oh, no, I see, okay.
So we,
Under dues and subscriptions?
yeah, they
The
were redundant.
IAFSM is the
Yes.
other one.
Yeah, yeah.
I see.
Secondly,
Dollars, Fred.
second,
Good, thank you.
second
Spencer,
item
did
under
you get that?
conferences and training, the ICC annual conference, we'd like to scratch that for $500 for this year.
What does that do? I mean, is that?
Well,
hardship?
you see the one above that, trustee, ICC training for $1,000?
Oh, okay, I see what
That's
you're
the
saying.
critical one where we get the continuing ed credits to maintain our ICC certifications that are necessary for our inspectors, but it's not necessary that we go to the conference as long as we can access
Okay.
that training session.
Okay,
So that becomes, in a normal business year, we'd say, yes, that's justified. Times are tough. Let's don't do it this year. Same thing for the electrical conference, NFPA. It would be nice to be able to go to that, but we'd like to skip that for this year. Just a word of explanation. When I put this budget together, not knowing exactly how bad our financial situation was, I included $500 to attend the National League of Cities Conference and just wanted to give the board a little background explanation as to why that was originally in there and why we're kind of pulling it back now. The NLC is primarily an organization that caters to the big cities like the Chicagos and the Atlantas and the Phoenixes of the world. But a few years ago, back in the mid-'90s, they came to the realization that many people in our country lived in cities under 50,000, even though a lot of people did live in major metro areas. And so the NLC created a thing called the Small Cities Council, and I actually served a 3-year term on that back in '95 through '97. Given the fact that one of my brother's city council member is the incoming president of the National League of Cities next year, if we wanted to get another representative on the Small Cities Council at the National League of Cities, I think we could pretty much grease the skids on that and get that done. However, in these difficult times, the timing couldn't be any worse for us. I don't know however the board feels on that. If they felt that was valuable, we could leave that in. If not, it could come out because of the hard times. But that's a little bit of the reason that we included that in this year's
And
budget.
that's membership-based, right? Does this cover
That's the registration fee to attend the annual Congress of Cities,
Okay.
where they do have a meeting of the Small Cities Council.
But is there also a membership associated with that?
Yes, but you don't have to belong to the National League of Cities. You can attend as a non-member.
So you do not have a membership in here for National League of Cities?
We do not.
Because we get a
We
lot
did
of stuff
prior,
from
though,
them.
didn't we?
Not last year, but I
before.
think 3 years ago, we belonged. I think 2 years ago, we dropped the NLC membership.
From them, don't you?
But yeah, throw that open for discussion. The AICP conference at $500 and the APA National Conference, we'd like to scratch both of those, each at $500. And a little bit further down, the ICCA Training Conference at $300, we'd like to scratch that. The one just below it is the critical one, though, that we would like to respectfully request remain in the budget, the Illinois Floodplain Conference at $300. That's where Vicki gets her, that's the only place we're aware of she can get her continuing ed credits to remain a certified floodplain administrator, which is an important designation to have in a community. And if she lets that lapse, it's really tough to get it back. You got to go through some pretty stringent testing in order to receive it. Since she's got it, we think it's valuable to keep that. And then I think, Trustee Emery, as you pointed out, under dues and subscriptions, that last IAFSM we could scratch, as long as we've got one $20 thing in there to belong
You're
to
happy?
but not three. I apologize for that oversight.
We're going to charge you a service fee of $20 for all of that, Fred.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. I had a tendency to focus on major programs and macro stuff, and I missed that it was in there, not twice, but 3 times. I'm very embarrassed about that.
Going back to the beginning, under professional services, vision screening, did we decide we're going to do away with all vision screening?
Yeah, well, I think we're going to skip that for a year, do it every other year, weren't we, Ron?
That's what we had.
Yeah, so that
Yes.
$300 could also come.
Did you do it last year, Fred, or did you not? Wasn't it scrapped last year, and this is the other year?
You know, possibly.
I believe that's what it was.
Yeah, so then we'd need to bring it back this year, but then skip it next year, I
Right.
guess, if that's the schedule.
What's the scanning expense?
Well, for the major records that we have, plan drawings and architecturals and everything, Ellen, what we have to do there is we hang those in a closet, and we keep the most recent ones, but then we have to scan those into the paper vision system so that, the storage space is just at a premium, and our closet, can only hold so much.
Right.
So every year, we try to scan those and reduce those to images. Glenn, I think we're kind of behind on that, so we'd like to catch up this year, but if we could spend up to $5,000 if necessary, we'd like to reduce as many of those paper records to electronic storage as possible.
And that not only benefits ED or any other department needs to search for those, but fire is starting to access though on a more regular basis as well, because a lot of that has building plans and other stuff that they need access to. So it's not just document management for ED, it does affect other departments as well.
Okay.
Down on the bottom of page 2, I'm going to go back into the conferences and trainings in a second, but
Okay.
you have web Q&A multifamily licensing software. Is that different than what was budgeted under IT?
Is that redundant, Glenn? Should that? Yeah, if it is, I would recommend that we remove that. We don't want to pay for it in both areas.
We've been collapsing, that's that big number, we collapsed a lot into IT, and there's still stuff that may be sticking out there.
Okay. Fred, if you would go back to conferences and training. Bear with me for a second. Would you go down the list, and you have all these acronyms, some of which I know, some of which I have no clue.
Okay.
And just so, in all fairness to the residents, I want to be thorough on this.
Sure,
And if one of them is, DGYMCA, I would like to know it. So.
Okay. APWA is American Public Works Association, and I believe that is for our planning engineer, Kim Nickel, membership. ASCE, Steve, what is that one?
Civil engineers.
Civil engineers. And then IAFSM is the stormwater and floodplain manager thing.
Flood and stormwater management?
Yeah.
Okay.
AICP is the American Institute of Certified Planners. That's Shannon Malik. and we indicated we'd like to just skip that conference for this year. APA is American Planning Association. ICSC
What's
is...
the Chaddick Institute?
Now, Chaddick Institute is a kind of a think tank associated with DePaul University, and from time to time they host various municipal forums and seminars and opportunities. A very well-respected planning institution, nationwide, worldwide for that matter, right here in Chicago. So Shannon just got back from a conference at the Chaddick Institute on how do you deal with, what was it, stalled economic development projects in this economic cycle, which picked up some ideas that way. So we think that's that has some value at a not too significant cost.
Okay.
SSBOA is the South Suburban Building Officials Association. Vicki Sinisak is a past president of that organization. It's a little bit south of DuPage County, but performs the same function that our local DuPage Association would, and she's got many friends and associates that picks up the same information there because it all deals with statewide building codes and those things. So. BFCA is that's seminars that have to do with the building codes,
right.
International Building Code stuff. And AICP monthly meetings are the American Institute of Certified Planners monthly meetings that Shannon attends on a regular basis. We feel those have great value.
Good.
Okay. Is the Illinois Society of Professional Engineers different than the Society of Professional Engineers?
Pardon me?
Is the Illinois Society of Professional Engineers under dues and subscriptions for $230 different than the Society of Professional Engineers for $500?
Stephen, they're a state and a federal?
The National Society of Professional Engineers, which then you are separate dues for the Illinois section of that.
Okay.
And then, Trustee, the only other thing, I appreciate the comments that Trustee Forsley made earlier. We would respectfully request to include a $400 amount for IML in there. It's kind of important that I attend the IML conference because I sit on the state legislative committee, and that generally meets the first day of the conference, as well as a couple of other times throughout the year, one in Peoria and then I think one in Springfield.
Right, that's the 400 is already in there.
Yeah. So I didn't want the board to think we were trying to pull a fast one and get that back in there, so I wanted to point that out. And IT Director Liljeberg informs me that the Web QA is a redundant charge, so we can scratch that $1,200 here as well.
Oh, okay, good.
Good.
And then the municipal garages for all of the maintenance and gasoline for all the various around
Code
the
enforcement
village.
vehicles and just like that.
For that entry, I put in what I'm told to put in. No, that's by finance and public works.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's obviously a charge that there's gas keys in the fleet Public Works Department bills, and we do the journal entries within the Finance Department. So it's only the amount that they are actually using.
Okay, good.
And the other thing, again, I think we've discussed before, we're just a hair south of 91% personnel operating expenses in our department. So we don't have too much in the way of equipment and other things. We try to make do the best we can with the hand-me-down squad cars, and we only buy the paper and the toner and stuff that we need to keep the existing equipment running.
If you get hand-me-down Dodge Chargers, you won't complain.
Somebody in your audience got a big charge out of that comment.
Oh, funny.
Any further questions on the Economic Development Department or for our wonderful representative, Fred Kimball?
Thank you, Fred.
Thank you, Fred.
All right, on to the Administration Department. Total expenses for the Administration Division for the fiscal year 2010-2011 is $343,800. This represents a 4.1% decrease from the prior fiscal year of $14,790. Two of the items that are included in there are a reduction in the administrative assistant 3 weekly hours from 36 to 24, and a reduction in conferences and training. Were there any questions related to the Administration Department?
The 6,000 for EAP, is that for the entire, all the village employees?
Yes, that's, yeah.
I'd like to reserve discussion, or we're going to hit it at some point. The village newsletter and the calendar is budgeted at $8,500.
Yes.
First of all, is the printing and actual production done here, or is it done by an outside vendor?
It's an outside vendor.
With the number of calendars and newsletters that are produced, is there any way that we can have them on our website and cut down the number of hard copies that are made, and certainly the postage? That's a lot of money for a informational piece that a lot of people read, but I think there's a great percentage of the town that can now click a button and look at it.
We could certainly do that. I don't know if we're going to continue to distribute a smaller number. I'm not sure how we would select how we would distribute that now.
Wasn't there some talk about having them pick them up at the village hall or library?
That was
or-
one option, was the idea of no distribution at all. We would print a set number, and if people wanted them and they contacted us, we'd make them available. Then we'd have the electronic online version that obviously anybody can.
Which we pretty much have anyway on the village calendar. I mean, in a way, it's there, at least the meeting's part of it.
Yeah, because if there's, I'm sure the printer says there's a minimum, whether it's, 5,000 or 10,000 or whatever, but it's got to be less than that.
The only thing I would say about that, and it's a luxury, those two publications, those are the single means of communication we have that we know makes it to every single resident. That's all we have that we know is going to make it to everybody. And I realize it's a luxury. I just wish there was a way we could still ensure that everybody's going to get it. I don't know how you do that.
In the hard times, I'd even go so far, we cut this back. If somebody, if they're not able to come pick it up, give me a call, give me their address. I'll be more than happy to take it to their house.
Well, if they know to do it,
I just don't think that we need the amount
yeah, no, I
of this
understand.
publication put out there. And besides, the newsletter, I'm not sure really, in my opinion, is doing what a newsletter should do from a village. To me, the newsletter should be dealing with your projects that are going on in town. Maybe some of the particular off meetings. I don't think you need to have.
Well, maybe we should change the scope of it. We could maybe. I get a lot of compliments on the newsletter. I hear residents, residents look for it, they like it. But that concerns me. It's just that it gets to everybody. Those are two things that we know it'll make it to every household.
Well,
and we can do all the deliveries we want, but for that, for that senior citizen, living in assisted living, if they don't know to pick up the phone and say, "Would you bring me?" It's a communication vehicle that I think is critical. And yes, it's a luxury, and I know we have to make decisions about it, but.
I think the only problem I have is we still have several residents, many residents yet, who still don't even have a computer.
They don't read the
have no
paper,
access.
they don't have cable, there's still a number of
Somehow we
people
would
like
have
that.
to get them that information. That's vital information we put in our calendar, and the newsletter is at least updating them what they have. At least some of the people are getting the newspaper, what it does have in there, but
Well, it's not usually right.
I am concerned. I know several residents who do not own a computer.
Well, we can still print them, but we need to print, 15,000 and mail them. You see that it's $8,500 to produce them. Do you see what the postage budget is?
What we could do is we could print a smaller number and then try to target distribution points where we think that audience would be, interacting with. For example, the senior center.
Yeah, because not only the senior center, but if they still do Meals on Wheels, it goes with the meal.
Oh, That would be almost impossible, I promise you.
Well, I think we're going to have to talk to all the different, senior programs, Park District, whatever, and let them know that if they call, we'll get a calendar to them.
Because I'm like Lee, if people call, just email me the address. I'll
Take it to 'em.
take an afternoon and,
We could also have
Drop 'em
stacks at various locations, like the
Right.
Park District.
yeah,
We could,
Library.
library, stuff like
Village
that,
Hall.
even like
I mean-
Westmont Pharmacy,
I
wherever
mean,
they're
if
gonna.
you're, for that matter, we could drop them at every house in this town. I mean, we all have knocked on doors. It's not like we don't know how to do that. I mean, we could
Yeah, but
drop them
I
off.
think we're talking about a minority
That's not
It's
what
gonna save a lot.
we're saying.
people who have
Would
got
save a
computers.
lot of postage.
You know, that's not what we're saying. I mean, you get into it as you go down here. I mean, printing on the two items alone is $23,000. I mean, I understand the concern of people getting information, but I mean, we've also gone to a lot of work with a lot of other information sources that we've been working on that we want to do. I just think we need to take a serious look at how we're handling this now. I mean, I'm not sure.
I mean, it's almost $40,000 to come up with them, print them, and mail them out.
Right.
That's a lot of dough. That's a lot of money.
I think if we make them available to them, they'll find a way to get them.
I think so too, especially the seniors who've known about them for years are going to be the first ones to go, where's mine? And when they call the village hall, write down their name and address.
Send us out. We'll
They're
go.
sitting in the lobby.
And everybody that gets them and throws them out, they won't care if they don't get one.
Right.
Glenn, do we have a calendar program?
Oh, God, it's in Word. There's one, I mean, it's in Office, there's
You
one.
mean,
Online, yes, we do.
we have a
Yeah.
calendar.
Yes, we do.
We have it
No, I
online.
know, but I mean,
It's pretty, you could do it in,
print a whole calendar, do we have any?
But we can print the calendar off the website too. I mean, it's just not as.
Just put the whole year on and then correct as we have to?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, the nice thing with the online calendar, it's fluid, so you could update it and change it
Right,
whenever you
right.
need it. So.
So a perfect example, last year when we had to make the change in the brush pickup program.
correct.
Public Works got bombarded because we couldn't make that change on that hard copy that had already been printed on all those copies, whereas with the web situation, we can go in and make those changes with those pages.
And plus, it's on the changes, Glenn
Right.
always puts them on the TV, on the cable station, and if we're going to start, and it's going to be, okay, staff recommends we combine these two meetings, the hard calendar becomes useless very quickly.
I mean, it's,
Gonna be
don't
the
get
stuff
me,
that
don't get
can
me
be
wrong,
changed.
it's a nice fluff piece. And granted, you know, it's got a lot of phone numbers and stuff in the back and that, but I think with the way times are going, I think we need to move forward. And I mean, I understand your concerns, Pat, with some of the residents. And I mean, honestly, if you know some of those people personally like that, well then, you know, maybe go talk to them, say, this is what we're gonna do, and I'll get you the information. I mean, I'd do the same thing for a resident.
I think rather than to just, you know, pull the rug out and pull it, I'd almost like to see us examine how the cost can come down. I mean, it's like 60 pages long or whatever. Maybe it needs to be 12 months and a page of phone numbers. Maybe it's just too big. Maybe we can do this for, you know, a third of the cost or a half of the cost or 25% of the cost. You know, maybe we can find some kind of compromise to suit everyone.
Well, Larry mentioned that he could cut down pages in there, so that would cut the cost. But,
I mean, we can pull it at any time, but if we can get it to a more reasonable cost.
the other thing I, was trying to figure out and think about, but I don't know how reasonable it'd be, whether it's on the water bill or we send out a postcard, is I'm thinking how businesses, Sears and people used to do their catalogs. They would mail you a postcard and say, bring the postcard in for your catalog. Maybe there is something we could be doing
Put it
similar.
on the water bill, come pick up your catalog.
We
Yeah.
can put it on the water bill. Because
We
we
could
have
put there
nobody
saying
looks
that
at
if you
that. I
want a
mean,
calendar, the calendars
but-
will not be delivered, but tell them on the bill that if they want a calendar, here's locations, or come to the village hall, or, or something like that, where they can still pick up a hard copy, because I think that hard copy is still going to be important to several. I mean, I use 3 of them in my house. My husband has one on his desk for when he knows when to put the shrubs and stuff out. I have one on the refrigerator, and I travel with one. I mean, it's a lot easier for me to flip open that calendar than it is to boot up the computer. And so when
It's
I
definitely a convenience and a luxury,
but if we
no
can find a
question.
way of notifying the people, you can get your calendar on the web, but we will have some hard copies available for people who cannot get on the web or need a hard copy, and find a way of sending a postcard or
That way we could keep the quality of
water
it
bill. And
high.
at least try that one year, see how many copies we do. How many copies do we have left over? Because for a long time, we see them sitting out here on the,
A ton. We throw away a ton.
and see,
have
I think we
Where
have.
are they stored?
We have some in the clerk's office.
Pardon me?
We have cut back from several years ago the number that we do print, the total.
How many were printed this year?
I'm going to guess 12, 13?
1,000?
Yeah.
So when you say we throw away a lot, are we throwing away hundreds? Or are we throwing away 50 or 60 or?
No, we're throwing away hundreds. Boxes.
Recycle.
Of course, it might be the situation where you have to buy more to get the lower rate, or if you buy the small, you're paying more to get less.
Well, I'd also like to
So-
see it go into competitive bidding situation too, which it hasn't been doing.
We have the last.
Yeah, we've been bidding that. Absolutely.
We went back to the same printer last year.
It did, yes,
Yes,
but
it
we
did.
did get prices.
Yeah.
Because it was a little late in getting the numbers, that's why. But that's a subject for something else.
The delivery on it, does it go to every resident in town, or how does it, what's the delivery?
Every mailable address in town,
Yep.
Multi?
Multifamilies and, okay.
everything. Everything.
And that's what I was kind of thinking about. If you wanted us to, say, just try to target single-family residents, we could try to figure out a way to do that.
I think rather than to just flat out say we're not going to do it or flat out say this is the solution, I'd like to see us, at least for now, just send it maybe to finance or send it to a commit and see how we can bring it down. Maybe we can make it more affordable,
Cut out some pages, find another way of delivery.
maybe we could serve all masters,
Well, why don't we?
with having fewer printed, smaller, as Bob Scott said, have it available,
Well, why don't we as a board say this is the amount of money that we think can be spent on it?
Well, because we don't have
Be
the
concerned.
expertise, we don't know how much that stuff costs.
I mean, IT can give you an idea what he can do it web-wise.
Well, why don't we do that for, like Sue said, for a committee meeting, because we'll be
Fine.
here on the calendar for another hour.
Yeah.
Do you want to move it to the Administration and Finance Committee?
When you're talking, 18 million, it's small potatoes, but it's got value in talking about it, obviously.
Yeah.
But I think everyone is saying that the calendar and the newsletter are both important, but we need to figure out a way to drastically cut back the cost. If we can eliminate postage, that's a big factor.
Big one.
I'm sure there are many pages, considerable number of pages that can be eliminated
I think we should just send it to.
in the calendar,
Yeah, I agree. Let's
which
take it out
would-
of committee.
which would cut the cost. And like has been discussed, have it available at the Park District, the library, the Village Hall. And if somebody calls and wants it, we'll
But
figure out
see,
a way to get it to them.
I honestly don't think we can say that until we know what those costs are, because we're going to have fewer printed. It might end up costing us more because you're losing the volume discount. I think we have homework to do. We can't, I really think we have to delve into it a little farther before we can say, because it could end up costing more to only print 5,000 of them.
But if we cut the
You know.
number way down, we could probably
And that's what we've got to
reproduce
find,
ourselves.
that's what we've got to find out.
And that would be a big savings if we could reproduce it ourselves.
Yeah, self-print,
Or
desktop
in-house.
publication.
Definitely.
Okay.
Sounds good.
A crazy thought. Since, and you said, somebody said Park District, is there a way to hook up with Park District, Community Unit School District 201 and ours and send out one thing?
Well, years ago, we actually used
Tried.
a delivery service, and we timed everything simultaneously. We did it with the Park District, and that worked well for a couple of years, but then there was some difficulty with the schedules.
Okay.
We continued to use the same delivery service for several more years, and frankly, we were having reliability issues, and we decided to go back to the Postal Service.
I think you'd have to include the other districts too, because
Yeah,
majority of the
sorry, I
time
didn't
you
mean
get
to.
to one that doesn't.
We've got
But if
99.
anybody sending out a publication, if we were able to coordinate it, would it be cheaper if we all just did it together, if that's a possibility? But that.
But not everybody covers the whole town.
Yeah, that's
You know,
true.
the districts are kind of,
Yeah, well, they want, oh, I see what
you
you're
know
saying.
what
I
I'm
see what
saying?
you're
So how would
saying.
you,
Yeah, I see what
Well,
you're saying.
that's fine. Let's take it to one of the committee of the whole meetings or whatever. We got to keep going
Because
here.
I think we went to the postage because being it's delivered in the end of December, January, the weather being so bad, it was being thrown out on the ground and it was getting wet and soaked and people.
Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah, so that's why we end up mailing it out, so.
I do remember that now.
okay, good.
Nothing else.
Ron, I think
Those are going to be question marks.
everything else looks pretty good. I have to ask, on the second to last item, on the IQ reports.
Yes.
I had thought I've seen where that's kind of archaic, and I'm wondering whether, is it something that we,
Archaic in what sense? What it is, it's a series of documents that's printed like every other month through the International City County Management Association. They're reports. They're basically case studies. And, I mean, it is something we don't have to have. They do cover useful topics. We could remove it easily, and, we do have access to see what is printed, and we can buy them individually. It's not that big a deal. If we felt they were of use.
because some of these groups, I think, my opinion is they do updates, be it legislative or, like say it's on, PSEBA or something like that. They duplicate a lot of things. So I was just wondering if, if there's any that it looks like IPELRA's sometimes does. But, I'm just curious whether, if you're getting duplication in these, in the subscriptions, whether you can cut down any. Just asking.
I would say, yeah, there may be overlap, and Kathy you may want to comment on this, but the SHARM and the SHRM and the IPMA HR, that's more of a public sector human resource agency. They do provide a lot of information on legislation as well as SHARM does. IPELRA, does provide updates too on legislation. So, yeah, there is some
we still get IML stuff under the
Yes.
legislative stuff. We're still getting all of IML's updates, so. Okay, so each one has its own worth. All right, I just wanted to check.
Ron, what is the advertising for 2,500? What is that again? Is that publishing the meetings and things?
That's generally been used, at least primarily, for publishing like job ads and stuff like that. We've used that.
Yes.
Okay, so where does it fall for the, like the zoning, those notices? Those. Oh, that was in.
Or the Planning and Zoning Commission if it comes out of the.
Oh, it'll be in there,
zoning commission.
okay.
They have
Okay.
advertising as well.
This would be just, I believe, just like human.
Job ads, stuff like
It's
that.
job postings.
Okay, cool. Works.
Any further questions for administration? Thank you. All right, into the next section, the Finance Department. Total expenses for the upcoming fiscal year are at $381,370. That's a 1.4% decrease from prior fiscal year, which was $5,330. Two of the items that were done was the elimination of the GASB 45 actuarial review and a reduction in conferences and training. I can explain what the GASB 45 actuarial review is. The Government Accounting Standards Board, GASB, comes out with pronouncements pretty much every year, updates the requirements for government entities in terms of financial reporting. One of the things that was done a couple years ago was pronouncement 45, which required an actuarial assessment of liabilities for what's called OPEB, which is other post-employment benefits. And municipalities were required to have an outside actuary evaluate any OPEB liabilities, and it had to be included in the report, in the CAFR, the annual report. We did do that last year as required. There is then an option, because of the level at which we do not have a lot of OPEB liability out there. We don't offer a lot of post-employment, particularly health insurance benefits paid by the village. So we have the option to do it either every year or do it every 3 years in order to be in compliance. It would be less expensive to do it every year, but you'd have an expense every year as opposed to 3 years that then the actuary has to look back at the past 3 years and do it. So it costs a little bit more to do it every 3 years. But we feel that unless there was a change in philosophy or in benefits and we were to add that, but we don't feel that it's necessary to do it every year now. So we feel that it would be sufficient to do it every 3 years, and that is in compliance with the GASB pronouncement.
Lisa, I just have one question on your budget. I mean, it looks really good. What's the Lynx credit card charges for $7,500?
That is actually for us to process. That's the payment that the credit card company charges us to run the credit cards.
Okay.
That's for all of the terminals where we accept credit card payments.
Yeah.
It's easiest for us to just consolidate it in finance. We get the statements and the bank charges, and since we do the bank accounts, we just put them all in our department.
Okay.
So that's for the machines in clerk's department and at police department.
Okay. So it's all consolidated, although theirs are also consolidated into this number.
Exactly. So all of them, we assume all the charges for those, as well as bank charges too for anything we have.
Thanks.
Nice to see that typewriter maintenance gone. Are you competing with Fred?
Yeah. Yes. We saved $30.
Can't you just share the same typewriter?
Of course, I didn't put it in 3 times and then take it out twice. We do. We've had typewriters and we've tried to sell them. We couldn't even get rid of them on eBay. So we basically keep them a couple times a year. We do have something that comes in and needs to be physically typed, and obviously we all have them. We're not doing maintenance on them, so once they go, we're just going to be sharing, and we'll be down to probably
or we'll
one
buy the
facility.
software where we can just do it online and print,
Yeah,
run it through a printer.
hopefully by the time they go, because they're workhorses,
Yeah.
we won't have to be using them at all anymore.
Certain forms require that you.
But through software, you can get, you can actually put those forms on your, I mean, in the long run, it's worth it. You save a lot of time,
Any other questions? Nothing else in there? Oh, these were easy. All right, on to section 4. We are done with general administration in the general fund, so that's a good thing. On to our commissions. The first is the Fire and Police Commission. There are total expenses of $39,400. That is a 103.1% increase of $20,000. We received the budget from the Fire and Police Commission, and there are 2 items that increased in there: promotional testing for $20,000 and new officer hires for $10,000. So that is the major increases in there, and those were based on their upcoming tests required this year, and what they anticipate will be the response to those testings.
My book says nothing for promotional testing.
No.
Yes,
Have an
that
updated
is.
page?
Yes.
Been a change from the page.
Yeah, if you notice that the total budget says 19,400.
Right.
The 20,000 for promotional testing was added in after we printed this, and we didn't reprint the
Okay,
thing,
so
so I
it's,
apologize for that.
39,400.
Yeah, the stripey sheets, the fund summary sheets have been updated, and we've got this here, but the sheets will be updated for you.
Promotional is 20,000.
Next time I commandeer your book, Alan.
What's the additional 10,000 for hiring then?
Yeah, I was going to ask, what is that exactly?
They still have to go through psychological and the physical
But that's all
polygraph.
part of promotional testing, isn't it?
No, for new hire.
New hire.
Oh, the new hires? Okay. I see $1,500 for them to go to minor seminars. 6 of us would like to go to some major and minor seminars. $500 apiece for them, I think, is a little much for, especially when they can't even tell us where they're going.
The only thing I would say to that is that they should get accredited or trained in it. And if they've already got their certificates, then I would agree with you. But if anybody hasn't got their certificate, then they should finish that up, and whoever it is. And I don't know if they've all got, I mean, I know Joe's got it, and I know Bob's got it, and I'm just not sure if Vince has got his.
These are all seminars by the Illinois Fire and Police.
Commissioners Association.
That's who the vendor is, or,
That's the only seminar they would ever go to.
yeah, it's a training
Right.
conference in a sense.
Because I'm just wondering, because some of them, I mean, they've been around so long, what, you know,
What they have is,
else are they gonna learn?
it's kind of like the IML version, because they go there, they get updates, they get the speakers that are telling what the issues are. Is it a necessity? I think not if you've already had your training and you can skip it and maybe go every couple of years.
well,
But-
I would like to ask them, I mean, this board has decided that it'll pay its way to everything we go to. So, you know, I'm not saying that we have to cut it, but I'd like to know if they're willing to take the same responsibility.
I'd say we should pay for the, if Vince hasn't been
Right, if
trained.
he hasn't been certified yet.
Certified then I'd say right, absolutely.
Right.
Bob, what does that certification do? How does that,
It's like every whatever, you know, like the village staff, in case it ever should be, come up for some kind of a lawsuit, and they
So
say,
it's-
have you ever
it's
gone through the
basically like
procedures? Do you
legal
know what you're doing?"
liability?
Exactly.
okay, so that's pretty critical then.
Is there a requirement, because I know that. in
There's no
order-
requirement to have it, but you're
Okay.
pretty dumb if you don't.
Because I know now, like, to sit on the board for the pension, for public pensions, you have to be certified and continuing education in order to stay on the
The
board.
state doesn't have any requirement for
Okay.
this.
It just, I mean,
It's good business, though, they have the training.
that is a lot of money for 3 people when we're looking at every single penny. I'm kind of with Ellen, I'd like to understand it better.
We can put it on the items for discussion, and then we can go back to.
Maybe they can get us more information, to Bob's point. If
Yeah.
if 2 of them are already certified, then maybe just one goes.
And we will ask the chairman, you know, who is certified and
Yeah.
who is not, and get a,
Yeah, because the only thing, from my perspective, is that when commissioners are sued, not only do they have tort immunity, but the only time something would come up would be on, where somebody might even remotely look at their certification, that I can think of is on a negligent hiring, where they didn't do what they should have done in a background check or whatever. And, I mean, we've got stopgaps all across the board for that kind of stuff.
Doesn't stop them from suing you, though.
Yeah, but I'm just
Well,
saying,
neither
the
would the
certification doesn't do
certification, though, would
anything,
it?
you know, it doesn't, so, yeah, I'd just like some more information. I mean, if Vince, you know, is partway there or has, fine, but,
Just understand it.
yeah.
Don't forget, there's no training for those commissions. You walk into a cold and you were expected, like when I got on it, and it was 2 weeks later, we were hiring. And going through the interviews. And you sit there and you know, go by the seat of your pants. Then when you go to the training, you find out what you shouldn't be doing. And it's amazing on what you hear out there, what other communities are doing, and I'm surprised they all haven't been sued. Or a lot of them, because of
But we have
the
counsel.
questions you can ask and the questions you can't ask.
Don't we have counsel for our commission? It's,
Council that attends?
yeah.
No, there's no, they don't attend, right?
The attorney?
Legal counsel doesn't attend on a regular basis.
No.
And sometimes?
Well, we're going to
We're gonna get more information, Bob. Is this something where one person can go and bring the information back, and next year maybe somebody else would go and bring the information?
As long as the training's been done for everybody and they've got
Yeah, once
certificates,
they've all been-
absolutely.
So at that point, it's just more recurrent and more
Maybe
keeping
one
up.
could go and then bring that information back, if they've all been.
And honestly, really what's happening now is a lot of the updates are being emailed to them from a legislative committee that's there anyhow. So they're letting them know what's new. They probably get something in print too. I'm pretty sure they get something in print sent to them. So they could do it and skip a year or two and it wouldn't hurt them, as long as they read the updates.
Okay.
Okay, we'll follow up and put that on the items for discussion.
Right.
And I don't know that we'll be able to get back with any answers tomorrow, but if we can, we will.
That's fine,
We'll work on
thanks.
that.
Yeah, because I see that they haven't budgeted for any council.
No. We've never paid for any,
For what?
for council.
Legal. That comes out of the regular legal expense, I think, under legislation.
Under legislation, yeah, because it should be different than John's firm.
Or does it come out of legal contract in police? I'll check.
The next would be the Planning and Zoning Commission. We have a 29.6% decrease, $7,000 for total expenses of $16,650, and this is a reduction in advertising that we kind of touched on a couple of sections ago to more accurately reflect the actual expenses, not as much activity in the planning and zoning. So we're seeing a decrease in the advertising, so we have made adjustments accordingly to cover what they've been doing and yet see a reduction. They have very little else in there. Any questions on Planning and Zoning Commission?
Well, that's easy.
Okay.
Their advertising
What is the contractual services?
And Planning and Zoning?
That's all it's strictly what the commissioners get.
Yes,
There's no other service provided.
And
Right,
the
the-
advertising, that's the,
that's the legal, the publications in the paper. the
and that
advertising.
reflects taking it away from the progress and the savings that economic development was able to obtain? Is that the new cost, or is that last year's?
Because we started that this year, did we not, Fred?
Well, we have not started that yet, but our desire was to maybe do that commensurate with the beginning of the new fiscal year. Is that?
So would this number be for the new amount?
No, this
Because it
is
was
more in- this is-
significantly less.
This is more in line with what we have been spending, so if and when
Could
we
even be a
went
little bit
and
less than
reduced
that,
that,
yeah.
we could
Could
go
we
down.
kind of get that number, just to have an idea what it'll be? Thank you.
You mean to advertise in the Herald and?
It's
Remember,
significantly
it was
less
like,
expensive.
like 25% of what
Yeah,
it
I know,
costs?
I just don't think it's as
Now,
legal.
we have the
but
village
that's-
attorney attend all these meetings. That's not reflected here. That's just
Why don't we just advertise it in Wisconsin and find it out?
No, it's not.
reflected in
There's no Herald around here.
The legal line item.
legal line item.
But that's one of the things I wanted to, Ellen,
Yes.
advertising in the Herald, is that acceptable for,
I don't like it.
I mean, like I said, why don't we advertise in
That doesn't
Wisconsin
matter.
and find a cheap paper in another state? Because, I mean, we don't get the Herald here, so what good is advertising?
It
get
meets
Harold
the
more.
requirements, but I think it does a disservice to the residents. I don't, it's much, much cheaper to do so, but like you say, we might as well advertise in, the Racine Journal.
Then I guess
I'm not
the
comfortable.
question comes up, then why is the progress so expensive?
I agree.
I don't understand why it's so
Hey,
expensive.
if you're going to win the Pulitzer, you need to pay the salaries.
That's right. That's right. That's how they take all those proofreading classes.
So for now, while we're checking on, I mean, we can,
And
this is still the
speech
progress.
classes.
Yes, that is still our current advertising method.
We
Yes.
can look at the difference again, but I'm not comfortable.
Okay.
I just think it's.
Well, Fred can
looks
come,
shady to me, but
you can
that's-
come back with some cost comparisons, and then maybe the board can make a decision once we have those figures on if that's the way you want to go.
If I remember that report, there was also, Trib Local was also a lot less, but not as low.
They weren't quite as low as the Daily Herald. I don't
And-
think Trib Local was.
Trib Local might
More
be more
comparable to the
readily
reported
available. I mean, Herald is available. You can buy it anywhere around here, and you can have it delivered to your home, but it's probably not as popular as,
The rag sheet?
Yeah, but they don't have a, the Herald has
I'll say it.
dedicated towns, reporters dedicated to towns like the rag sheet does, but the Herald doesn't have one dedicated to Westmont, so they don't cover,
We've kind of
why nobody gets the
The cost of
Herald.
doing business, I mean.
We've
I
kind of
look at it,
wondered
we-
aloud, both here at the staff level and perhaps at the state level, about whether or not we might be able to come up with some sort of, like they do with the procurement for state government, have a website where you go and post all the notices for, legal notices for meetings with dates and times, so that everybody would know to go to that site and try to make that statutorily legal, as opposed to printing it in a newspaper, which seems to be rapidly becoming an archaic form of communication. We're not there yet, but it's a noble goal.
That's why we send you to Springfield.
That's right. Got it.
What is the difference in printing costs between the Herald and the Progress?
Ron,
That's what they're gonna look at.
Is it that significant?
It was about 25% of the cost, I think.
Ron, there was an email from
Yeah.
Planner
Yeah.
Malik, I think,
I'll
about
find it.
6 weeks ago, and I
It
don't
was
have that at my
significant.
fingertips. I apologize.
And that's a bigger paper. They've got to have more expense than what the Progress has got.
Well, and I think
crazy.
they weren't even really responsive in getting back with the numbers, if I remember right.
As I recall, Shannon reported that when she informed the Progress that we wanted, their numbers, and that we were kind of doing an outreach to find out what other modes of publication might cost, they said, well, that's our number, but, we don't want to lose your business, so if that's too much, come back and see us, which,
The Hagel system.
yeah. So we don't know whether that means the size of the print would be reduced, or, what that exactly means, but
Oh,
we,
well.
I wish I could
Certainly.
just use the quote from the movie that Kurt Russell was in, Used Cars. It would work out real well here, but you can't do that in the public.
we'll certainly take the direction of the board here and implement it.
Well, we should look at it, definitely.
Okay.
If, it's a big chunk of change, so,
We'll put that on the items for discussion,
yeah, thank you.
just for next meeting. Right, on to tab 5, which is the police department. And we will start with police administration. Total expenses for the police administration department are $637,885. That's a 12.2% reduction from the prior fiscal year, $88,750. Some of those changes include a change in the way that we budget for the Red Speed program. I explained this once before, but we started that program last year, and when we were doing the budget, we had not actually been billed or gone through the process yet. So we had budgeted as if we were going to receive all the money and then be billed from the company. That is not how it actually works. So we had overstated our revenues for that, as well as our expenses last year. So we have reductions both in revenue and expense this year, because the way the program actually works is we just receive the net proceeds after the expenses are already taken out from the company and rejections and all of the things involved in that. So now you'll see a reduction in the revenue and expenses, and we talked about that in revenue when we covered that.
Where's the money go overseas? Oh, I'm
Oh, I don't know. I don't keep track of that. So the other was related to our participation in DUMAG being paid from federal drug funds for $20,280, which I'd also mentioned in our last workshop. That is an appropriate way in which to pay for that. And just a little explanation to expand on what the federal drug funds are. We received money for cases involving federal drugs, and I don't know if someone else with more expertise would like to come up here, and if I misstep, please tell me. We received the money, and there are reasons why we can, there's statutes and regulations for what we can spend the money on. It has to be towards drug-related prevention, education, and things like that. This is a separate bank account. It is not commingled cash with any of the village funds, so we know exactly how much we have. We have in excess of $45,000 currently. The money is audited. When we go through our audit, they do look at it because it is an asset of the village, but you do not see any expenses or any revenue in the budget for that, because we don't know how much money we're going to be getting in, and the expenses are determined if we've got something that it applies for, we can use that toward it. So we have the funds there, and the police department, when going through the budget, said this could be a way that this year we could continue participation with DUMEG, which they feel is valuable, by using those funds to pay for that. Did I say anything wrong, Tom?
Ditto.
Thank you.
Here's your podium.
You guys
time.
taught me well.
Handing over.
So those are some of the major decreases that you'll see. Any questions on any of the particular line items?
Lisa, under wages, and I'm assuming either I'm missing it or maybe it's just a typo, it shows just one deputy chief?
The other one's under another section.
Yes, it's under
it's in
patrol.
another section?
Yeah,
Okay.
there's a deputy chief of operations and
Okay,
administration.
so there's, okay, so that's all correct. Thank
Yeah.
you.
So this would be Deputy Chief King.
Okay, gotcha.
Lisa, a stupid question, what's target?
According to the contract, the officers are paid for target time where they have to go to the range. It covers practice on the range that's required, as well as roll call time. And it's separate from, they're given 5 hours a month at the beginning of the month to cover the time at target as well as the roll call time.
Okay, explain to me that what the chief and the deputy chief, and you have an administrative assistant, why would they have contractual target time?
It's for the sworn officers, so they have that as well. Not the administrative assistant, she doesn't do roll call or
The
target,
sworn
but
officers are in the other section. This is.
they're still sworn officers. They're not part of the collective bargaining agreement, but they are sworn officers and they'd still go to range practice.
Okay, so they get the benefit that the ones covered by the collective bargaining agreement get?
Correct.
Also?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And they do also attend the range to keep up on target skills.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but I'm wondering.
Yes, it is the same. You're right.
Nextel phone service, do they have an unlimited plan, or is it a?
We have a combined like minutes, and we pool all the minutes, so we sort the number of phones by pooling. Limited on, or no text message or limited text message for emergency services. But it's a certain number of hours that we pool, so that way together we may not exceed the amount of hours or the minutes that we have. It's a municipal plan or it's a law enforcement package plan.
Great.
Through Nextel, and we constantly review that. We review the usage monthly, as well as quarterly. We look at the plan and see if there's a way we can review.
And there's only 8 phones.
That's in administration ones.
Administration, right, okay.
Yes.
There's 16 total? Okay. So is that number just wrong, but the price is right, or is it split between patrol? Okay, there you go. Thank you, Deborah. So all of them are in here. We don't have any in patrol or any of the other divisions. They're all through here. Okay.
Tom, under, it's in the last page, Arboretum View, Downers Grove Animal Hospital?
Yes.
And then the DuPage County Animal Control.
Yes.
I can understand the animal control. The animal hospital would be for use when?
Again, this year, we looked at all of our expenses. We found out that Arboretum View, which is in Lyle, would cut our animals, costs for stray animals, the care and the storage, almost in half compared to Downers Grove Animal Hospital. However, there may be times when Arboretum View may not be unavailable. They're there 24 hours a day. So we've changed our policy, and their officers are to go to Arboretum View first, which has a reduced cost, and Downers Grove as a secondary part. The DuPage County Animal Control are for animals that we can't control, or that we have to call the county out to come and try to catch for us, such as rabid animals, or a dog that we may not be able to, that they'd have to come out. They will charge us.
Don't forget that rascal rabbit.
Rabbits, yeah. So that results in a savings this year, or drastic savings compared to our cost last year, because we looked at everything, trying to trim our costs.
Tom, why aren't radar gun calibrations under patrol? Why are they under administration?
can't answer that. I don't know.
It's the duty of the administrative sergeant to handle the calibration for the later.
He makes, well, he used to be the accreditation manager, but I don't.
Well, it's because that budgeted line item is just out of administration control department.
Okay. Yeah, because usually, I mean, street equipment is usually done under patrol, so I was just wondering why that wasn't flipped over to
It's just
patrol.
always under other equipment. It's always been under that way. You'll see other parts here that are both administrative as well as patrol-related as well.
The decision was made a couple of years ago to move all of the maintenance for equipment to administration, as well as maintenance services for the building, and then to have the maintenance services for the vehicles under patrol. So the administration covers the equipment in the building, patrol covers the vehicles, just as a simplification.
One thing, if you would look at office equipment, you'll see 5 chairs. That will be reduced from our budget, if it hasn't already. We were able to purchase those out of this budget year. So that won't be a purchase they will not make next year.
Which item is that, Tom?
It's under second page, capital commodities total, capital outlay, office equipment, office chairs 5.
Yeah.
And the report writing room, chief, deputy chief. We purchased those this year with the funds we had available.
The range cleaning of 3,000, does that include getting rid of all the casings and stuff?
Yes, it's the lead. There's another one where we reviewed it. We were paying $5,000. When getting a second vendor price, we had a second vendor who was able to do it for $3,000.
Okay.
Our current vendor agreed to meet that price, so we're saving $2,000. The only thing we're having to do is, it's a hazardous material, the lead. It's in a cardboard box. It's sealed, kept in the garage. I believe it was over close to $1,000 just to have it picked up each time. So we're going to keep it, so we have, whenever we have the cleanings, they'll get 2 cleanings into that and then removed, which would result in a cost savings. It's a sealed container kept in the garage, no danger of contamination.
How many AR-15s do we have that you have budgeted 6,000 to buy 4 more?
What we're planning to do is we budgeted for 4 AR-15s. Our AR-15s are over 10 years old. We're unsure of how many rounds have gone through the barrels, and that's what caused the wear and tear on the rifle. Also, some of the rifles are different than others. We're trying to get them standardized, so when our officers go from one car to another, all the equipment is standardized as the same. What we planned for was replacing 4 a year, and that's what the $6,000 was for. It's a replacement plan. I believe we have 16, so we planned on 4 years we would be able to have all brand-new rifles, be able to track better how the wear and tear on the rifles, and again, have standardization for our officers.
Is there one in every squad?
There's one in every, most every marked squad. We also have one for, one spare, I believe. And part of the problem is what we have is that we have, if we go on a range, like tomorrow will be our range day, we'll be pulling AR-15s from marked squad cars to have at the range. If something were to happen, officer were to come and take that car in an emergency situation or something like that, he may be without his long gun. So we'd like to be able to also have spares for the range personnel as well.
Well, I know a lot of departments are doing the rebuilds on the barrels because it's a lot cheaper and it's putting new barrels on them. So,
We can look at that, but here again, we're trying to assist with the standardization. We also
Right.
looked at, if you look at, I think it was one of our second level cuts was to reduce that to 3. Again, we're trying, rather than doing it all at once, trying to replace a little at a time, hopefully getting the standardization and keeping our weapons up to date.
when's the last time the handguns were replaced?
Handguns are each officer's individual responsibility. They're purchased and the officer's responsible for themselves, so we don't purchase any handguns by the department.
Are they all different?
We do have a policy that covers what type of weapons they can. It's the officer's choice as long as it complies with policy.
So how many different ones have we got?
Say roughly 6. We have manufacturers, so like the reputable manufacturers, Colt, Glock, H&K, Springfield, ones that our range officers have established reliability. We allow the officers to buy. We also have a barrel length requirement, which is 4-inch minimum barrel, magazine capacity requirement, and every weapon has to be approved by a range officer for carry. So it's a responsibility officer to purchase it.
And approved by myself before they're allowed to carry it. It requires that the range officer, they qualify with the weapon, the range officer has looked at it, feels that that weapon is appropriate, and then it comes to me for their approval before they can carry it on and off duty.
And with the AR-15s, we do have 12, and this was a
12 months.
3-year program to do it, as opposed to doing 3 for 4.
Well, I mean, if there's going to be consistency and compatibility, I think it should be across the board, but that's an issue for another day then, apparently.
Well, that would be one, though, that they wouldn't share. Well, correct me if I'm wrong, each officer would have his own. They wouldn't be sharing their own guns with somebody else.
The ARs?
Officer down, you have to be able to.
I don't know how that works.
To take his handgun and use it.
Well, we also have go bags, which are additional extra clips. Officers carry, their own magazines, carry their own bags and extra magazines in their duty bags. The ARs, we have the ARs, which is standard, has extra magazines, so the officers are trained with that. And I just recently went to shotguns, so the officers have the availability of a shotgun and an AR-15 in the vehicles. As far as each individual vehicle, again, we have standardization, yet it just comes to officer preference. And also, too, I know in the past when we've tried to, I know when the former Chief Ramey tried to do something with standardization or changing of weapons, it became close to being a labor issue because it became an economic issue for the officers.
They're all on automatics, aren't they?
Yes, sir.
I think most of the cops pretty much know how to handle guns.
And they each carry their extra ammunition. We have the go bags in our training. We encourage extra ammunition. Most of the officers are, do have it in their duty bag in their car with them.
On the issue of the semi-automatic, Sergeant Schlicker is currently changing the policy, going from the fleet to the flexible. And that's, an idea that we had for changing the policy on that to allow all officers to practice with and be qualified on the platforms that were allowed from a semi-automatic pistol. But the AR-15, which is a low incidence, high risk operation where we want everyone to perform to, whatever you're grabbing to be the same. So
right.
For the AR-15, if we don't deploy that often, we want them to be the same because it's going to be worst case scenario when they come out of the cars. Yeah, no, it makes sense. I mean, I know the reasons. I'm just I'm a little dismayed to hear about the difference in the handguns because of, in an emergency situation, lack of familiarity is not a good thing, but if this is the way you choose to do it, it's your choice. So you're replacing over 4 years, 16 AR-15?
I'm sorry,
12.
the correction is 12. I misspoke. We have 12, not 16. But it would be 4 years, so 3 years.
3 years, okay. All right.
It was 4 years. I thought it was 4.
Yeah, there's 12.
Chief, under conferences and training, can you explain those first 2 items? One says replace and one is retirees, 2 and 2.
Okay, good. For the basic officer training?
Basic officer training, what is?
For retirees and replacement.
The replacement would be if the 2 that the board has approved for us to hire would need basic training. We didn't know if that lateral training, if that was going to come in place at the time, so when we prepared the budget, we were anticipating those 2. Also, there's a possibility, and again, we have to anticipate, 2 officers could or are eligible or could retire this year. In the outside chance that they do, we want to be able to, again, replace those 2 if the board so chooses allowed us to do it, and be able to send them to basic training if they were not police certified from another town. From the, I keep on, it's not lateral hiring, but it's, I forget the term the fire and police commissioner are using. But it would be for officers that have previous experience. If an officer comes to us as being certified within the last 5 years, he will not have to attend the basic police academy, and that's where we would result in those savings.
Okay, explain the retiree thing to me again.
And anticipating.
I understand the replacement part, but training for retirees leaving?
No. If 2 officers retire this year and we were approved to replace those 2, we would, and they did not have training, we would have to provide their basic training costs.
Okay.
It's just anticipation, not in case it does happen. It's
Chief, sticking with conferences and training, the miscellaneous training, is that sort of in-house training, or what is that?
That could be for training, outside training, not so much inside training, but outside training that comes up. IRMA will offer classes that we may have to pay for. There's also classes by Illinois Chiefs of Police.
So is that sort of a cushion for the unknown that might come up?
Yes.
Did we have that last year?
Yes. We actually
use it?
We reduced it by $4,000 this year.
Okay, but did we use it all last year, or no?
We did not. That's why we reduced it this year.
Okay, good, thank you.
One thing you also mentioned too, and you're talking about certification, I believe was with economic development, with Mr. Kimball, was police chiefs and deputy chiefs are required by law to attend 20 hours of supervisory training a year. We do have to keep track of our training and send it to the Illinois Standards and Trainings Board at the end of each year. So there is some requirement for chief and deputy chiefs.
Additional questions? All right, if we're done with administration, we can head on to the next division of police, which is the patrol division. For patrol, we have total expenses of $4,295,045, which is a 1.8% decrease from the current fiscal year, or $77,025. This includes the maintaining of 4 patrol officer vacancies and decreases in overtime expenses.
How do we calculate in here any kind of percentages did you use depending on how the bargaining agreement's going to go?
As I stated when we talked about personnel, the first day, we went with the assumption of nothing, a 0% increase, because we don't have a current contract and we've got 0 built in for the rest. So knowing that any increase would result, whenever it occurred, would result in an increase in the bottom line. Trustee Emmer, you had asked regarding how much a 0.5% equated to, and we did do those, and it's just over $15,000 for each 0.5% for the collective bargaining unit.
Right. Yeah, because you were able to give us that number last week based on half a percent increments.
Correct, and we did verify that it is, and we had the overall numbers that we did do. So it is just over 15% for every 0.5%, or 15,000 for every 0.5%.
I see there's 1 CSO budgeted.
Correct.
Wasn't there supposed to be 2 CSOs?
We have 1 CSO. He's our property control officer, so that's his current designation.
This is our current
officer.
Okay. So it doesn't include the ones that we recently approved?
No, it does not have in anything for after the authorization to hire, we do not have those positions in here. Correct, Spencer, am I missing something?
No,
they're not included.
I think that our understanding was we were originally going to hire them rather than hiring the 2 additional police officers, and then when the authorization came to go ahead with the 2 additional police officers, I think it was determined we were not doing the part-time people at this point.
We still are.
Still are.
Those were the temporary part-time officers, that when the officers get hired, those positions would be eliminated.
Right, we need to include them,
adjust
I think,
this.
Yep.
because
It's
they're.
got to be in there.
Yeah.
It's got to be in there.
Yes, so we do not have.
Because they're, with the time delay in getting the 2 officers hired, trained, and through their probationary period is why we had the temporary CSOs. So it absolutely has to be in there for this budget.
We will add those in then.
But if you've budgeted for the 2 new officers starting now, and they may not start for several months, once they do start, the other ones will be let go, the part-timers.
'cause-
Wouldn't that offset the cost?
Well, yeah, because we do have the full cost of the full-time too in here, so.
It doesn't offset because they're going to be going through training and probationary period where they'll be on salary.
Keep them on there during.
They'll be on
It
the
was my
clock.
understanding, while they're on the field training officer program, the temporary part-time CSOs would remain on staff.
Right.
Once the full-time officers come out of their field training officer, FTO period, that's when we would eliminate the temporary part-time community service officer.
How many months would that be overlapped?
The FTO, the field training officer program, is a 14-week period, minimum 14 weeks. We cannot lower that, and we could extend that at some time, so 3 months.
Okay, so they should at least add 3 months of it then.
And also, too, is again, we still haven't, the Fire and Police Commission have been meeting. They met last Saturday. They're doing the oral interviews, and they're doing oral interviews on this Saturday. The background test, there's a good chance that we probably won't hire those officers until June, maybe early July. So then you add 3 months on top of that, so you're probably 6 months into the year that we should budget for.
And I stand corrected, on the police salary increases, it's actually just over 19,000 for every 0.5%. Was over 15, but.
Yeah. Yeah, 19.
Chief, can you answer a question about car washes? How often do we get them done?
It's on an as-needed basis. Here again also, in reducing our costs, we found out that King Car Wash will actually do our cars cheaper than they would for Fuller's. So we no longer use Fuller's, we just go down to King. They give us a little better price for the same amount of service that Fuller's would. It's on an as-needed basis, like now, the weather, they probably haven't because, well, except for driving on Burlington Street, you probably get a lot more dirtier, but on an as-needed basis. We've also had the officers watch that, and you'll see a reduction in our car washes from last year as well.
Session till we vote on it.
Could you explain the extra duty work pay?
Where is that? Extra duty?
Wages, extra duty?
Because it was supposed to be a savings.
Is that under salaries?
Yeah.
Extra duty is currently our officers work extra duty assignments such as the car dealerships hire us for security. Right now, their Laurel Motor Group has hired us for traffic control at Black Hawk Drive in Ogden. The village charges companies that wish to hire us as, I guess, contractors, as you could say, $40 an hour. It's $42 an hour with a car. We charge for the use of a car. The officers, after taxes and everything, get approximately $35. The village does charge an administrative fee. What you're seeing there is the fee that we would receive
kind of a
from those
pass-through
contractors.
almost.
Yes.
Do we cover our cost?
Yes,
we do. We definitely
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Yes, the officer gets what the fee that's been negotiated, and Lisa and staff, we worked on that, I believe it was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And we can evaluate it anytime and raise it, but we believe we're covering it. Lisa
We
can
do.
address that.
We reevaluated and increased the rates. It not only covers the hourly rate that the officers have agreed to work these assignments for, it covers an administrative fee for us to do the billing and receipts, as well as contributions, the employer contributions for FICA and IMRF for the employees.
Gas costs for the car?
That's the $2 an hour charge if there is a car. If there's not, there's no car, but there's an additional cost for wear and tear and for fuel of $2 an hour for the car.
And we have one vehicle, it's an older continued use vehicle that we use the detail for those, so we're not using a line car, so we're not putting wear and tear on a line car, it's just the extra duty detail car.
I don't know.
Tom, the 38,000 for uniforms, is that, how many uniforms per officer? Because it looks to be just under 1,000 apiece.
Here again, we've reduced that again. It's a quartermaster system. It's come as an as-needed basis. In the past, officers would usually routine. We do two purchase times now in the spring, getting ready for the summer uniforms, and we'll do one starting in September or August, September for the winter uniforms. We monitor it. We compare the officers' purchases by year. If he were to come in and say, I need a new sweater, we look to see when was the last time he got a sweater. What we've done to reduce costs this past year, and again, you should see reduction in the uniform cost, is that officers in the past would get 3 pairs of pants, 3 shirts. We've reduced that to 2. If they need more than that, they have to come in and explain to me why they need to do it. Each purchase order is reviewed by Deborah Rice. She compares everything to the past. Boots, we make sure that if someone's coming and buying a pair of boots, they aren't getting a pair of boots every 6 months. Unless it's needless, they can come in and show. So I couldn't give you the exact number of shirts, sweaters, pants. It includes leather products. It includes boots, sweaters, jackets. It's just something that we monitor very closely.
Under your capital outlay, can you explain those 2 items, the automotive equipment and then other equipment?
Capital outlay.
Bottom of page 2.
There's nothing in.
Automotive equipment, other equipment.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you've moved all that to the other side then?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Municipal garage, that's primarily like the
Vehicle
fuel
maintenance.
costs
Our
and
vehicle mechanics to do our vehicle maintenance.
and gasoline, that's all factored in there?
It's just the fuel charges.
Just the fuel charges?
I'm sorry.
Just fuel
Okay,
charges.
that's what I thought. Okay.
Tom, tell me what they have in each squad under some type of emergency kit that, you know, maybe I'm not seeing it here. You know, that's got like a spit guard and if you've got hazmat or somebody that's been exposed to something, it's all
We have a
kits
spit-
for officer protection that are special, you know.
Right, we have masks. We bought masks, so especially when the H1N1 virus was coming out, we bought masks. So the officer comes in contact with someone who they may be exhibiting cost, they would give them a mask to put on, or the officer could put a mask for his own protection. We do have spit guards in the car. We have first aid kits. We do have, we bought each officer a hand sanitizer, and we also have hand sanitizers in the station. Each officer got their own individual bottle of hand sanitizers. The other thing, like I said, in our go bags, we also have training. We have tourniquets, other bandages for an officer-involved shooting, or for the first aid to apply to somebody else. We've also gone through training with this. I believe there's Israeli bandages, I guess. I went through the training, but that's part of our go bag, along with extra ammunition and clips. It's also first aid supplies for tourniquets and mass casualties.
Okay. In the go bags, when's the last time that the supplies were put in there? Because that stuff ages and then becomes, you know, dried out, especially when it's in a hot squad and all that.
The go bags were purchased within the last year and a half. I want to say within the last year, but I know definitely within the last year and a half.
Because I don't remember seeing them on last year's budget, and they're not on this year's budget.
We may have taken it out of our operating supplies. I'm not sure.
Yeah, they were purchased.
Was it on last year?
Yeah, they were purchased last year.
Under capital items? Okay.
That was our initial purchase, was last year in our training. As show and tell, here's an example.
Yeah. I just want to make sure, because if something deteriorates, that's not doing.
And
you
now
guys
that's covered
any
in operating supplies, right, Deborah, for replacements? So if people need them, they've got a supply and can come and
And
get that.
and we also had training. Detective Gabriel Esky gave us training. It was required training. We'll have refresher training this year on that as well.
We're also currently researching flotation devices for the spot cars.
Yes.
In light of recent events, so we have personal flotation devices.
Each squad car has a throw rope, which was utilized in our recent rescue. However, in our most recent critique, we do see the need for the officers to have a flotation vest. However, we don't know what the cost, that's not included in here. So we're going to be looking at other flotation options that may be more economical that we could put in each squad car.
Especially with, I know Sue and I, you know, I don't know what percentage of 911 calls Sue and I have made over the years for kids on the playing, you know, on the ice, on the ponds, or, you know, looking like they're about to tip in and all that. I don't think that that is a bad idea at all. And can you make that an item and that we get a price on quickly?
Yes, we're researching it now. With the help of Lynn Drolly from the fire department, I believe, we are looking into flotation vests. Again, our squad car size is limited, so we're looking to see the best we can get. Each car does have a rope now. This has a throw rope, like it was utilized. That was purchased, I want to say, over 10 years ago, because for the exact same thing. We had an officer do an ice rescue. And so he utilized the rope as that way too. So we are looking to, I'll get you a price and forward that to you.
We could get a vest and a rope.
Right there, then you don't have to call.
I have my rescue scuba gear, and I got kicked out of there last time.
Okay. I can order a pager and if you...
Or I'll send the volunteer K-9 unit out.
Yeah.
Because they're not on the budget, you'll notice.
Yes, but they are on the graphic.
Well, key the word, hence the word volunteer.
I do have to update that graphic, Sue.
Anything else that you think you need? As long as we're talking about it, throw it out there.
And it better not be a Dodge
I mean,
Charger.
you know, yeah, and I didn't say it. It came from over there about the Dodge Charger. But, you know, there's been a number of incidents where, you know, be it shootings in the village or, you know, the explosion the other day or whatever. But if we have to make sure the squad cars are loaded state of the art.
We have first aid kits. We've always had first aid kit. We do a weekly inventory. We have the masks. We have the spit mask. We have the mouth-to-mouth protectors.
Okay.
AEDs?
We have AEDs in each squad car. We've had a very, very good safety program under Mike Chorney and Steve's guidance, and we've done this. We have the safety vests. We have all this in place. Like I said, we wouldn't think about the vests. We had the rope. We didn't think about the vest until our latest critique.
Right.
And as things go along, well, we do have a lot of the safety items we already thought of ahead. Well, we've planned for and have. You asked if there's anything else. I wish I could think of something so I could say I could throw it in there,
Well,
but
that's it then.
Okay, bye, thank you.
Your time is up.
if I think of anything, I'll throw it in there with the vest. Put it in the between the lines, the small print.
Sounds like with all the things you have in the car, you need a bigger car.
Yeah, Charger won't work.
We unfortunately now are in the position and is that we cannot have passengers in the front seat anymore. With all the equipment in the car, and now we have in-car printers that we have to a grant from the state for traffic crash, and also we're going to be using for, hopefully to be able to reduce more in the budget for e-ticketing, for traffic tickets and warning tickets. The paper will be paid for by the county. That's another part of the grant. You no longer can sit anybody in the front seat. So right now we have 2 interns riding with us. They can only ride in the SUVs because that's the only vehicle that we have that has enough room.
Are you doing ride-alongs with your academy then?
We can't. The only place you can do a ride-alongs is in the SUV. You cannot put anybody in the front seat of a car anymore.
Which also makes, for long-term, training new officers for the FTO program.
Difficult.
Yes.
Right.
It's going to be a little bit harder for them to judge the operation of that compared to a squad car, but we exhausted all options of moving this printer around, and we keep on looking for more, but we're kind of limited. As Trustee Forsley said, in these cars, if I get called for a pickup and picks up, you sit in the back seat, just like a prisoner would. You no longer. I haven't remembered the last time I sat in the front seat of a car, of a MARC squad car, because the officer's all his equipment, all his duty bag, his go bags, his AED, everything like that. It takes him about 3 trips to get ready to get out from the station to the squad car. The trunks, we're limited in our space in the trunks in the room as well too.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah, and our supervisors, yeah. Well, that's why you'll see a lot of law enforcement agencies going to the Tahoes. They'll go to the Tahoes for their entire fleet. They're going to the larger vehicles for the entire fleet. Our supervisors have repeatedly asked. They want an SUV as a supervisor's vehicle compared to, a squad car, so they could have more, because a supervisor's car has even more equipment than a regular officer's. Yet, we just, under our budget, we can't do that for right now.
Something to think about in better times, that's for sure.
Thank you, sir. Investigation.
My podium time done?
Nope.
Oh, you've still got some more divisions here.
Investigations.
Yes, we have investigations. We have total expenses of $867,090, which is a 1% increase from the current fiscal year, $8,410, which is just increases in health insurance currently.
If I could add, we talked earlier, and you'll see narcotics expenses, but we talked about the federal narcotics fund that we took the DUMEG out of. We are exploring the opportunity of participating in task force, either by the Drug Enforcement Agency. We currently have one detective tasked, assigned to a temporary task force with the EA and DUMEG. And if there's any seizure money comes out of that, we will get a percentage of that, and we anticipate to be able to get some type of funding if that ends up in an arrest situation. This is where the DEA approached us, asking us for manpower. We've also detectives have been asked to assist the FBI in an investigation, which again may also result in some type of asset forfeitures.
What's the distinction of sergeant availability at 9780?
The sergeant will no longer, the detectives by collective bargaining agreement get the detective stipend, which is 6 hours overtime.
Right.
The available sergeant, since they are not covered by the collective bargaining agreement, receives 1/2 hour overtime for each day worked. So if he's on vacation, he will not get as the detectives would. If you're on vacation, they actually get the detective stipend. The sergeant, it's only a 1/2 hour overtime per day worked. So if he takes a vacation day, a personal day, compensatory time off day, he does not get that 1/2 hours overtime. And that's also for his standby pay. That's for, all the detectives are required to carry a phone, answer the phone. They are also, the detective sergeant's on call 24 hours a day, as was recently evidenced in our most recent homicide. Sergeant Dale was out and was one of the first supervisors on the scene. He's required to be available even on his days off. Vacations would be an exception. But on his days off and his time off, he is expected to be available not only for any other detective that needs him, but to answer any questions or respond to any incident. There's times also if you call the detective out and he needs a supervisor, it's the detective supervisor who will come on to assist him rather than another detective. This was a change, I believe, 2 years ago. The detective sergeant used to get the detective stipend. When Deputy Chief Gunther was in the detective sergeant, this change was made approximately 2 years ago, year and a half.
Yes.
So that also results in a savings to his salary.
Oh, it's not. Communications. Oh, it's there's nothing. There is no communication.
Of course, communication.
There's no communication in that department.
The reason for this is because of the direction we're going into a consolidated dispatch. We don't know what to budget for because we don't know what our future is going to bring. We have been attending various meetings, and we have various options open to us. We hope to be able to have more information soon, but without knowing which way we're going and when we're going, we don't have a timetable yet. This is why nothing was put in there at this time.
Lisa, yeah. I mean, we know it's not going to happen May 1st. So we're going to have benefits and salaries and.
Correct.
Shouldn't we be reflecting that in here?
It does. It's 8:15.
Yeah, what we really have
so
is.
it's for communications, it's in there.
We have 818,500, which is a 2% increase from the prior fiscal year, which reflects increases. If we were to go the entire year as status quo, this is what it would cost us.
So we're okay.
Maintaining the 3 full-time vacancies that we have. However, having gone through a year or so of looking at consolidation options and assuming conservatively about $200,000 savings over a year-long period, we had built into the fund summary assuming a 6-month conversion if we were to do it. We know that we can't do it any quicker than 6 months. If we did, it would be right at 6 months. So we made a general assumption to try to hit savings of $100,000 for the second half of the fiscal year by consolidating at some point in time this year.
Lisa, what did you say that number was?
I'm sorry, which number?
The budgeted expenses for communication.
I think it's 818,500.
Because my fund summaries have it at 815,630 in the expense comparison and the fund summary.
The fund summaries are the accurate one. The difference is in insurance. We just recently received updated insurance information for the price increase for the HMO insurance.
As of today, yeah.
Yes, as of today.
Yeah.
So the PowerPoint numbers show what they were before the insurance change. The fund summary sheets show what they are currently.
So I'm sorry, I actually missed that. So it's 815,630, so it went down slightly.
So Lisa, it's accurate to say that we've got the numbers and the overall budget expenses. We haven't printed off the detailed sheets because we've been very actively looking at our various options and trying to evaluate if we could reduce our expenses any further, but we will have those sheets in the final version of the budget.
Yeah, it's just so that it's in the overall summary, so we don't get a surprise of close to $1 million.
Correct, yeah, and it is in the summary, and we don't have the detail on there, as Ron said, but the figures are up to date and accurate, and we continue to maintain that portion of the budget.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
Any other questions on communications, consolidated dispatch, anything? All right, the last we have here in the police department relates to police pension contributions, which we have talked about a little bit in the property tax portion. Total contributions for the current fiscal year are budgeted at $1,446,395. That is a 93.8% increase from fiscal year 2009-2010, just under $700,000. That is all from the increase in the property taxes that's attributed to contributions for the police pension fund. The property tax contribution is $1,356,395. Last year, we started putting a portion of our supplemental sales tax to police pension of $90,000, and we did that during the budget process last year. We had not updated or not increased the police pension tax levy, but we have an arrears that the village board wanted to begin to address. So the raising of the tax levy gets us closer to the current year's contribution, and we maintained the supplemental sales tax contribution of $90,000 in here to continue to address the shortages from prior years' tax levies. The next sheet that we have explains on our PowerPoint, we have what the actuarial required contribution, what we call the ARC, is for what the village should have been levying or contributing to the pension fund each of those years from 2000 to 2009. You can see the blue line represents the percentage of the actuarial required contribution that the village did contribute, and the pink line then is the overall percent funding of the police pension fund. So the blue line, you can see, goes in the current fiscal year, which is the 2009 tax levy, which is received in 2010, 2011. It is 84.7% of the ARC. Now, the board's direction in December was to levy 105% of the prior year's ARC because we don't know at the time we have to prepare the tax levy what the most current upcoming year's ARC will be. So because of investment earnings declines, which we're seeing and is the third portion of the funding mechanisms for police pension funds, that raised significantly over what it was the prior year, almost $300,000. If you look in the prior years, you don't see those large increases. So the board looking ahead and saying 105% any year prior would have been hit the target right there, but because of the investment earnings, then the only other way to get the contributions is to increase the ARC for the village, the employer portion. So you see that jumping dramatically. So even though it's at 84.7% and we levied 105%, there's where your difference is, which is still far greater than the percent that has been attributed for the past 10 years. And we will then see the effects, the overall funding drop to 44.5% in the last year. Now that we've made the strides to increase the police pension contribution, next year when we get the report, we should see that pink line dramatically increase as the overall funding percentage should rise and should hopefully be over 50% again.
Okay.
Any questions regarding the pension fund and the funding? Okay. We also, in the book, have put in there the net assets for the pension fund. So you can see from 1999 through 2009, the last actuarial report, where the pension fund has been with their net assets. And you can see the years of increases over the 2 years where there were declines in the net assets. And last year, the 5.7% decrease was attributed to investment earnings, declines in the market. All right, on to section. We're going to skip section 6, which is the fire department, due to the memorial service for former Chief Johannick, and go on to section 7, which is the Public Works Department. And we'll start with Public Works Administration. Public Works Administration total expenses for the fiscal year are set at $276,425. That's a 0.6% increase of $1,745, which is increases in health insurance, which y'all should be hearing me saying that over and over and over again, every slide. So we're open now to any questions, and Public Works Director May is at the podium, here to assist.
I'll just describe generally, there are actually 6 different divisions within Public Works, and Public Works Administration is kind of the overview division. From a personnel-wise, it just accounts for myself, the Public Works engineer, Noriel, and 1 administrative assistant. Other items in here would be such things like, 1 example would be like the uniforms and clothing. If we buy safety shirts or something in mass, that would apply to all, staff that would come out of this budget as opposed to the individual division budgets.
Individual questions?
Steve, you've got under professional services for administration, miscellaneous engineering at 5,000 and then miscellaneous at 1,000. Is that sort of a
there are, being that
anticipated fund?
They're not in the past 2 years, but prior to that, there was an engineering division budget. And when the village engineer retired, that was consolidated into this administrative one. So that's a placeholder for things like when we have, for example, would be a drainage complaint that would require a professional land survey or a topography done. This would be for unanticipated type of issues that come up during the year so that we can address them as opposed to saying we can't even look at that till next year because it's not budgeted. So we don't spend it if we don't have I'll call it an emergency come up.
You've eliminated the rug service building and the maintenance services building. Are they still there? Because if they're not properly maintained and clean, you're going to have trip hazards and Irma will have a fit.
Right. We have the rug service actually shows up in different areas, anywhere from Depot to Westmont Center to our own buildings. Some of them we own and we're just going to do the maintenance ourselves, and the ones that we're getting changed out, we'll still be having them in the Depot. There is a previous vendor that used to do the supply and return them, left all their material behind like 3 years ago. So we do have a supply of rugs that we own and do not need to replace them. Okay. In other locations, like in our own buildings, we're just going to stop using them.
Okay. John Chorney from the Park District talked about partnering some way with?
That would be for actual floor maintenance, and that'll probably be something will come up when we do, for example, Westmont Center. They have machinery now that will allow some of the both vinyl floor and the terrazzo flooring routine maintenance for that we currently contract out that we might be able to start doing in-house.
So that has nothing to do with the rugs, what he was talking about, okay.
Why is accident and claims insurance a line item here where for other departments we don't have it?
We're going to be real careful.
No, but I'm just.
I think it's driven by the amount of risk that we perceive in that particular department. You know, if they're out in the field, obviously, they're more likely to get either injured or in a vehicle accident. So we put a $2,500 deductible in there as a placeholder.
Okay, so that's, yeah, because I mean, we already know what the insurance, we talked about that last week about the insurance and it's overall, so this is.
This is for deductibles for if there was an accident in that division. Yeah.
Congratulations, Steve.
Any other questions for administration and Public Works?
This one's the thinnest of them all. So
yeah. All right. We have next is the Facilities Division with total expenses of $411,780, a 3.4% decrease of $14,395. Some of the largest eliminations in there, or largest items in there, are the elimination of the monthly safety incentive awards, as well as the Executive Safety Committee monthly luncheons, postponement of flag replacements, and a reduction in funding for unforeseen repairs.
Facilities has 6 employees. All of these divisions are a little dynamic from year to year, so you'll see a lot of notes in different divisions as we go through them where something was moved to another budget. As facilities was established and we started doing more facilities types work in that, we've even moved employees over to that division. So they currently have 6 staff if you include both custodians and some other expenses that were moved out of what were typically done in street operations will now start appearing in facilities as well. So you'll see references to either move to or move from with that. Some things in facilities, I can give you some examples like light bulb service. There were well, like the fuel we talked about, where every division for accountability we back charge fuel use to any particular department, but light bulb maintenance, we've taken all of that and we're just handling it out of the facilities division for all buildings.
Where other departments used to, all the departments used to.
Anything that's common to every facility.
Budget for light bulb replacements in their facility. Now it's done.
There might be unique things that could be attributable to only one building, and then that'll stay in that department's budget.
Like they won't take on our IT projector bulbs. Facilities questions?
Steve, the backflow yearly inspection, that's for the buildings here, not for anything that the village is requiring from businesses and such?
Oh, no, correct. That's only our own facilities.
Okay. So that doesn't fall under, we've got, under economic development, we've got elevator and plumbing inspections of $32,000, but the backflow inspection is separate.
The inspections are the ones that they actually, that would be for commercial properties and things like that. The backflow here and maintenance of our own buildings would appear in facilities.
Okay, all right, I got you.
And then because the facilities supervisor is also the safety coordinator, all of these safety related, even though those are village-wide topics, also appear in this budget series.
Is the, before I forget to ask you, the cost of removing and disposing of the former railroad crossing that is still sitting, ruining our grass, is that a cost to the village, or is BN someday going to come and get that stuff?
They should come and get it, but it is in their railroad right-of-way, so they have, I don't know if you've noticed, but the old railroad grade crossing at Cass Avenue was sitting off to the side for 2.5 years before it was picked up. They do have a new roadmaster who's been a lot more responsive to that, and when they did the railroad tie pickup and cleanup, they took that away a lot. We've been making a big effort of maintaining, not just by the depot, but by the water division and everything. We're trying to do physical turf maintenance and get everything neat looking and along Westmont Center. So they like that and they're receptive to that, so they're working with us on it. This crossing here that was just recently replaced, I can't tell you when they're going to come get it. They also have plans, although I don't have details, to redo the crossing at Cass Avenue and raise that up a little bit too. So I imagine when they come to do that work, then they'll take everything with them at that time.
It's quite the eyesore and a danger because people's little kids play on it when they wait for their parents.
Sitting in funny angles, with the corners sticking up and everything.
I know.
They're not even piled neatly, they're just kind of thrown aside.
Under your safety program expenses, you show $200 for the safety incentive awards, where here you're saying you've eliminated them?
There's two types of safety incentive awards. The monthly safety incentive awards were people who had not had accidents were eligible. There was a random drawing and you were eligible to win. These are ones where you catch somebody doing something good safety-wise, or they get some sort of a nomination for a good safety habit.
It's almost a merit type.
Yeah.
So that's still in there then?
That's still in there.
All right, I have to ask why. Every employee in this village is supposed to exercise good safety habits. And we don't award them for other departments.
This is for all the departments.
We initiated the program a number of years ago because, again, as part of our IMAP evaluation, that's a component that our self-insurance pool promotes, the idea of having a behavioral acknowledgement program.
And this would be any department is eligible to get it. Yeah,
it's not just public.
The fire department could nominate somebody in their own department, or the police department could see somebody in Public Works doing it and nominate them.
It is administered, because the facilities manager is also the safety coordinator, so it's administered
Okay,
through.
well, as long as it's, if it's village-wide,
Yes, that is
fine.
village-wide.
And it is for, you're correct, for people that are just doing what is already nominally expected of them, that's not rewarded. It's for above and beyond observations. We have a routine, I say monthly, but it's periodic, where there's actual pointed, I don't want to say covert, but inspections where they'll go and do behavioral observations of people without them pre-scheduled with them, being aware that it's being done. So that would be applied in those situations.
Yeah, unannounced. All right.
Next would be street operations. Street division has total expenses of $1,843,870, which is a 3.5% reduction of $66,660. That's a lot of sixes. A couple of things that are in the budget. We currently have the brush pickup program maintaining the same schedule that it was in the current fiscal year, the fiscal year 09-10 budget. Does, however, contain a reduction of tree trimming and tree planting, as well as reductions in sewer jetting and grading.
Yes, speaking to the, the personnel portion, this does show seasonal staff at 5 seasonal workers, and that's to maintain. The brush pickup program, if you recall from the Public Works Committee, is slightly reduced this year from last year, but what the comment was is that to match what's already published in the calendar that we decided we're going to do, that's what the 5 seasonal are to maintain that. There are other additional seasonal that you'll see on this page is 0 because that was removed, and that we have anywhere from 10 to, I think 12 was the largest season we ever had of seasonal employees that we've been able to take advantage of before. But none of those are included in here, just the 5 necessary to maintain the brush pickup program throughout the summer. There are vacant positions that remain vacant in here. The wages, part-time, overtime is actually the part-timer. There are no part-timers. The only current part-time employee is in the facilities division. The seasonal, as opposed to, I don't want to call them permanent part-time, but the ones that are here every day, this overtime would be for like special event type activity. You can see on there that no monies were expended, and that's because through creative scheduling during special events, we pretty much had them all working at straight time during those hours. Also, when you get into even the full-time, wages, overtime above that, we started getting into the habit of breaking out what is overtime for our regular public works operations, essentially storm activity, mostly in the winter, but there can be thunderstorm type call-outs too. And we're separating out work that we do on an overtime basis that can be attributed to any one of the variety of special events that are done during the year. That's just for your reference. Going down into professional services, Lisa mentioned that besides the variety of things that we might contract out, one of them is, it says sewer TV and jetting, and it says jetter and capital projects. That's because this is corresponding to a capital purchase for a piece of equipment that we do our own jetting instead of hiring that out. So the $6,000 that remains would be to do either an emergency call out of a size we don't have, or to do televising, which is actually running a camera through a sewer so you can inspect it from the inside to make determinations of what you have to do. We also have a resource with the Village of Downers Grove where they own their own camera, so we could almost get that down to 0 if we can get access to their equipment when they're not using it. But with that, I'm told they're very busy with their stuff too, so we don't know to what extent we can get free work there. But I point this out because if we get to the capital improvement budget, we might have to refer back to this line item if there was a question about acquiring that piece of equipment. It's something we have never owned. It's not replacement, so it's a new item. That's why it's in the capital budget as opposed to here.
Is that a duplicate on insurance?
I don't understand.
It's another $2,500 in insurance.
This is for street division. The other one's for administration, which would cover the personnel that are there. This is in streets.
Operations.
Street operations.
Yeah, I'm confused. Isn't there one $2,500 deductible?
No, every claim has.
That's per claim.
Per claim.
And what we've done is we looked at certain departments where we think the risks are greater, that we might see a claim, and we put in there one deductible.
Oh, okay. So you've built in one for a year where there's heavy experience.
Right.
They're only allowed one accident.
Yes.
Well,
and as you can see, there wasn't any in administration last year, and in here we had 1,300. So.
Okay, Steve, why would we rent an ice machine?
There's an ongoing lease. There's an ice machine in the street division that's used by all departments. But in the, it's the summer, it's for hydration reasons. They fill up the
for the
coolers
people
and
that are
stuff
out in
and
the
take it
street.
out with the
Okay,
crews.
street.
Isn't it cheaper to buy one than rent one for that cost?
You know, I can't say that I know. I just know they've been leasing it for a very long time. I'll
get a
tell you
price?
something else. It's just since I've been back here in Public Works, 2003, it's already been replaced twice by the
Really? Well, it probably
company.
gets a lot of use.
Yeah.
We use it a lot for special events as well.
special events and,
Yeah.
but it's our, one of our best tools for, you know, heat stroke and heat stress.
Right.
Well, in the summer, for sure.
Yeah, that's fine.
Definitely.
It's, if it wasn't being replaced quite so often, then all right, I take back what I said about buying it.
Accepted.
It's not a new machine. It may be being replaced because they're,
I mean, they
the
may be
company's-
renting out crappy ones.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the way it is.
Steve, how do we determine the salt usage? Because 2 years ago, the salt purchase it was a lot. I mean, it was.
No, I flip a coin and you don't know what it is.
Yeah.
We are now, we knew what our costs were going to be per ton this last year or this last winter that we were in, but we don't know how much salt you're going to use. And in fact, we did such a good job of salt conservation combined with precipitation in any one year, you can't guess, you don't know what it's going to be. And it's not even the total inches you get, it's over how it's spread out.
Yeah.
So the little multiple 2-inch snowfalls use an incredibly a lot more salt than one big 12-inch snowstorm, which you wouldn't use any salt until you were done anyway. So the usage in addition to the cost. This year we're going out to bid. We turned in our quantities, so we're waiting for our price back from the state where we're estimating what we believe it's going to be. And then, of course, we're estimating what next winter's usage is going to be. We were implementing a salt conservation. I will say that for the first time, we have one salt dome at Water, and we have a bin at Street that they keep full too, but in the summer we use that for other things like dirt because it's the only covered storage over there. And we take all the stow it back, so our goal every year is to have a full salt dome at the end of the winter so that we're full going into the next season. We couldn't fit all the salt we had left. We have put in the bid, you have an obligation to buy the amount of salt that you specify in the state bid. We had to take 200 tons of salt to our good friends at the Village of Downers Grove, and they're storing it for us until next year. So we've never had that problem before. So our allotment for the next bid is reduced because we already have, I don't want to say too much, but we've got.
But we don't know what that price is. I mean, 2 years ago it was high. I know we said Downers was, they got a better price. The last year we're in the ballpark. So again, every year it varies.
Different vendor.
Yeah.
We were awarded a different vendor than the Village of Downers Grove was. Yeah.
The
Central
ice-
Management Service.
The ice melt downtown area. Now, what is that for the
Ice melt
removing
is
of it?
the bag salt. We say the downtown area, it is because we use most of it around the depot and around our buildings in here as sidewalk maintenance. And 2 years ago, we decided there were other police and fire were purchasing their own, where they were supposed to be purchasing it. They just came at night and stole all our salt anyway. We just decided that, like centralizing other purchases, it would made more sense to put all salt purchases in one place so that we can, get a handle on each year's usage. So we maintain all of the salt for all the facilities as well as the downtown. We don't salt sidewalks downtown unless we have like an ice, freezing rain type issue, and that consumes a lot of material if we need to do that. But that's what that is.
Do we have any lift stations?
For stormwater, we have, that we maintain, the only one is actually in our detention basin at the police facility on the north side.
Okay.
We will have 2 more at the next board meeting. It's an intergovernmental.
We're inheriting.
We're inheriting 2. There are other ones in town. I mean, there are Nelson Court, there are privately maintained ones. They do exist in town, but the village only maintains 1.
Okay, because I was just seeing that there was no separate line item for lift station maintenance.
And we don't know what those, and even the one we have, there's no preventative maintenance done on it. It's as needed, and when there's a problem, we'll have it maintained. We're talking with DuPage County about getting prices about what it would take to do preventative maintenance when they're doing that same type of work countywide. But I don't have a cost on that.
Right. I see that you've got $2,200 for gypsy moth control, and I know you've got mosquito abatement in health and sanitation. What is the state of the village's, like emerald leaf borers, Dutch elm, anything else that we should be concerned that we're not budgeting to?
We have not, we have been speaking for several years about the emerald ash borer, but even though some of our neighbors have that, we have not been, it's inevitable, but we have not been hit with that infestation. And because of that, even though we discuss it, there's no, decision on how we're going to handle that. We're pretty much going to have to deal with it when it becomes a problem and how fast it occurs. And whether or not you want to address just public properties or when you start a program for assistance with private properties too. The gypsy moth was there was a high infestation that they were noticing 2 years ago, so we budgeted for it in this current year, and they did not do any application, so they're not finding the issue. So if we don't find it, we're not going to spend that money, or address it. So it's pest control.
Okay, because the emerald ash borer, we have them in Carlton Court, and the homeowners there pay to treat for them.
They're paying for a preventative pre-treatment, but there has not been one found.
Oh yeah, they're there.
Well, I'm sure our arborist would like to know about that.
Yeah,
because he marked every ash tree in the town.
Well, but we have them in our, not to have the tree, we've got the bug.
Yeah,
We had a choice
I'd like to talk to you about that.
Cutting down all the ash trees to keep it from spreading and all that, so.
Unless our landscaper is
We'll
feeding
have
us
a
a line.
discussion about that.
No, we'll need to, because
Possible.
as far as we're aware, the closest example was in Willowbrook.
Yeah, because that's why I'm asking, is that because we have them and it's very expensive, our tree maintenance stuff.
Well, you're right, and we do know it's coming, we just don't know which year, so it's hard to set aside tens of thousands of dollars on that item when you don't know if it'll occur that year.
Is there anything for Japanese beetles that are like infestation in Westmont? Because I know it was like crazy.
Not that I've heard.
Okay. All right. We'll talk about the ashes.
Yeah.
Maybe our landscapers,
Oops.
Maybe he's selling us something.
Well, there was something on the news about, they
Wheaton's
found
got
it
'em.
someplace, yeah. There was something just on the news that they're already
Glen Ellen
discovered.
had 'em.
In the area, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, already this season, though. I mean, we just started, and all of a sudden, they started showing stuff on TV, so.
Steve, we stopped doing eye examinations. Is that across the board? I see you've got money budgeted for hearing exams, but nothing for vision. How do we know when these guys are driving the snowplows in the winter that they're not gonna?
Well, we did have,
There's no mirrors missing from any cars.
The chance we take.
Is that there? How do we monitor that?
It's every other year.
The
Every other
hearing,
year a
the
department
hearing
does it.
conservation is through IRMA, and we've actually just instituted that this year, and that is for the CDL drivers as part of the requirement, because they have to have the hearing certification before they can renew their license. So that's why that's in here. The vision test,
It's
even though it's required
by law.
for them to have it, whether or not we pay for it, is right, one issue. The vision testing, similarly, is that we were paying for annual eye exams, and they do have, vision requirements with their vision renewal, but we duplicate these expenses depending on which insurance package they have too. So, I mean, they can get these vision ones already done at no cost through the HMOs and depending on which one they're on. So to pay again for repeated vision just to do it annually was an issue. I mean, it was IRMA liked, that we had the policy, but it's a matter of, can we afford that duplication?
Makes sense.
So they have access to the vision already.
Free?
Or whatever minimal co-payment.
Okay.
There are other areas like under uniform where instead of having issued in uniforms, we give them a uniform allowance that would, for example, would be protective eyewear. If they need that, they could apply it to that. So each individual employee's needs can be applied to that uniform allowance. It's only $150 per person, and guys that can make their boots last 2 or 3 years, do other ones, like the concrete crew, they might go through 2 pairs, in a season. So that works better because they can apply it to their different needs, and safety glasses would be one place where we would allow them to use that.
Okay.
Other questions related to street division? Next would be Public Works, the Fleet Division. The total expenses for the upcoming year are $590,775. This is a 17.2% decrease of $122,505. This is the continuation of the vacant full-time mechanic position and includes no equipment replacement. And a lot of those decreases you will see in operating chemicals of $45,000, a reduction in need to maintain our stock for maintenance parts for $20,000, $35,000 for no additional equipment, and then we also have reduction in outside contracted services for maintenance of $8,000.
Yeah, this is well, to me, is a very exciting budget because a lot of great things are happening here, and these costs keep going down, and they're doing more with less people. So you have, as she mentioned, we still maintain a vacant position, so there are only 3 mechanics, and the professional services are the aerial bucket truck inspection. That's to have we're not certified to do that type of hydraulic safety inspection, so that would be one type of professional services that's contracted out. But like Lisa mentioned, if you look at maintenance service equipment, maintenance service vehicles, operating supplies and chemical, which would be kind of fuel related, but going further down, maintenance supply equipment and maintenance supply vehicles. If you look at not only the 2010 budget versus the actual, but go back to the 2009 actual, and these are just falling like rapidly. Crazy. And not only are our maintenance expenses going down, we're doing more maintenance of more vehicles. Like all of the fire department vehicles were all being outsourced, and we're doing all that preventative maintenance in-house too. So this is additional workload, reduced costs, and I'm pointing it out now because we're on this budget, but I'm going to refer back to this when we talk about the vehicle replacement plan, because it's a testament to how expensive it is to maintain what used to be a very, very old titled fleet.
There's a definite connection there, isn't there?
And we do have some telling things, particularly with the fire maintenance. When we talk about fire, you'll see the SUFD contracted service has dropped significantly, tens of thousands of dollars in their budget due to the fact that with the vehicle replacement program and allowing the fleet department, the staff, to have the time, because they're not spending so much time on other vehicles, that they can actually service those in-house and do it with less people, as Steve mentioned.
Well, the one thing I wanted to bring up, which the ones that were at the Public Works meeting the other night, we brought up the question of this tire changer that they wanted to eliminate from the budget and the balancer. Well, we asked for a little bit more detail on this piece of equipment and why they wanted to do it. And I would suggest that we put this back into the budget, because what this is, all of your new vehicles that are coming out now have sensors for tire pressure. And the old changer that we have, I think we estimated was Second World War. It's been here, I don't know. But
I have since determined it is 35 years old.
How old?
35 years old.
Holy. Well,
piece of equipment we're using.
What happens is, this old piece of equipment will probably bust every one of those, and replacement for each sensor is about $140 per sensor. If we decide not to buy this piece of equipment and outsource this work, then you're going to have to take the vehicle out of service, take it to the place to have the work done. It'll have to sit and wait, so it'll probably take anywhere from, I think we figured, 6 to 8 hours.
It'd be a full day.
It'd be a full
you're
day
talking about
out of
squads.
service.
A car, we would take the wheels off.
Right, and But if we
take
had
them
it
to the shop,
in-house-
let them change the tire. We would actually do the balancing when we got it back, so it's a lot of shuttling around.
But I mean, if we actually had it in-house, your turnaround is maybe an hour.
What's the cost of the changer?
$6,300.
6,000, yeah.
Oh,
300.
The $6,300 for the changer and the balancer was $3,600.
$3,600.
So for 10,000, and Steve, what did we determine, the average, what, two sets of tires?
Tires per a high mileage like squad vehicle, and then when you take into the whole car
year.
fleet, another side benefit to replacing the equipment is not just the types of wheels that we can now do, would be the size. We can now do the pickup truck size tires all the way up to a 1-ton vehicle. We'll be able to do those in-house, of which would be sent out, and those are up to $100 per vehicle. That's just we would still have to give them the tire. That's just the labor to change the tire and balance it and give it back to us per vehicle, and we can do all that in-house. And trying to estimate, we're forecasting how we know how many tires we go, through the police department. You hope you don't change tires too often in a 1-ton dump truck, but if you did, and putting that all together, the payback on both the tire changer and the balancer is, probably 3 years, no more than 5 years would be the payback turnaround on that. And the last one lasted. Actually, the 35-year-old one still works. It's just of a style that we can't.
The technology's changed.
We can't do it without breaking things.
Could we give it to the police department for their bikes?
Yeah. So, I mean, we did have it removed out of the budget, but the closer we look at it, it's almost going to cost money to not do it.
Well, and taking it out, I mean, we're taking a vehicle out of service for a day, and if you do it in-house, it's a couple hours, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, if that. I mean, maybe an hour. And the turnaround is one of the important parts, but it's you're relying on a vendor and their workload, and hopefully you'll get it back the same day.
I mean, I don't know what's important.
That's not even
about
factored
that.
into the money.
I think it ought to go back in.
yeah, I think so.
I think both those pieces of equipment ought to go back in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm okay with it.
If there's no objections, we'll put that on the changes. Board direction. Thank you.
Look at that, I'm the only one that got something put back in.
Steve, what
Fred's
is?
going to ask for his $20 back.
Yeah. Put those $20 back in. What's the, oh God, what was it? The gasoline charges, gasoline and diesel, $225. And streets has gasoline at $125. So
That's their portion of it.
This is where 100% of the fuel we purchase from the vendor gets paid for.
Okay.
Then we will, through financing, we will bill the respective departments and divisions and attribute that money to their division. So I suppose there would be, a revenue item, if you want to think of it that way, in here too.
well, because then on a balance sheet, if you're showing $225 on gasoline and diesel, and you're showing in police, and you're showing in fire and streets, you've got an overpayment at on the bottom line.
Right, and when we did the interfund transfers, did we take, we talked about did we take that out and consider that, so when you look at the interfund transfer sheet, it's taken out of the expenses in those departments, so we don't overstate our expenses.
Okay. Man, I thought I found like $200,000.
We listed it as an expense and a revenue, so.
Right, it's an expense and a revenue.
That was a good try.
I know, it wasn't.
Other things that just of interest that I wanted to point out, if you go back up into insurance, there's a UST insurance, that's specific insurance for the underground storage tanks. Going back to operating supplies and chemicals, which is the fuel, you'll also, besides the previous year's actuals, and we had a $300,000 budget in this current year because of the fuel prices going up. I mean, it did go down a little bit, but the current's $173,000. So
really good.
Some of that is, of course, the price we're paying for fuel is getting a little bit better. But I would like to attribute this to our kind of aggressively with the anti-idling policy too, that we instituted, and instilling better habits in the, you know, the people that were there too, so.
Good.
We talked about the maintenance costs.
Load up the ice.
And other equipment. Yeah. Under miscellaneous services, the very last category, the only other thing actually Melissa noticed was the fuel tank repair. Those are repairs that we always have, but we can't anticipate exactly what repair is going to be. That almost should be under professional services instead of miscellaneous services, but either way, it's a service.
Okay.
How old are those tanks actually?
I don't know, I think the 70s maybe.
One's been replaced, hasn't it?
I remember.
Yeah, one has been replaced.
One's
There
been
was
replaced. But you still got another one that's...
The tank is one, the tanks are, well, you know, when this says tank repair, it's actually the dispenser and the pump and the, you've seen it. I mean, I show you a photo, it's amazing it works at all, it seems like.
I'm just...
That's encouraging.
Yeah. We do have contingency on how to get fuel.
Yeah, it's called the credit card for the
It's called a hose and a siphon.
Yeah.
It's a new trustee that has to do that, then, isn't it?
It's one of the things they
Yeah, I
keep in
think
the
so.
trunks of all the squads, is a siphon hose.
Initiation.
The junior senator.
Put it on the floor of the
Brings a whole new
passenger
meaning to the
side,
word
under the
suck,
printer.
doesn't it?
One thing that was removed is the fuel tank. You see E85 conversion, but there's a zero in there, no dollar amount, and that was those were, the expenses are on the other sheet, but that was an attempt to convert we have 3 tanks, diesel and 2 no-leads, and one of the no-leads could be converted to an E85 because a big part of our police fleet now is, biofuel compatible. So when we want to start doing that, we need to invest into changing some parts on the tank to accommodate it.
Is there a requirement out there in the future that we have to do that by a certain date? I thought I remembered reading something like that. About the E.
Well, there's
85.
biofuel, I mean, there's diesel requirements and emissions that come with trucks that are always put into place, and that's why dump trucks, we budget for one number and then we find out, new emission law, and now something's, $5,000, $10,000 more expensive than it was before. I don't know about the E85 component. It's a recommendation to be that you will see from the ad hoc committee on climate change, but right now we're
Okay, I thought there was some
just making
directive
plans
on
for
that.
when we can do it.
Steve, just as a ballpark, since Ron's always made sure that the village was conservative and saving, and so we don't have any surprises, if something happened with that other tank, what's ballpark to remove and replace? In case we had a few dinero to start setting aside.
I really don't have a good feel for what that was. I can go back and do research and see how much it cost on the last one. The fact that we have 3, if we ran into that situation for the balance of the year, we could probably just run 1 diesel and run no lead and survive. That we would just change the rate of fuel delivery that we get, and maybe more than once a week for the no lead.
What's the capacity of that tank?
Yeah, it's stump the engineer day, right? I don't know. I'll find out.
Most underground tanks are somewhere between 4,000 to 6,000 gallons.
I want to say they're 5,000-gallon tanks, but I don't know why I want to. Maybe because you just gave me that.
No. I remember what we had to go through when we had to have a tank pulled out of work, what it cost us, because EPA has to come in and mitigate it, and you have to make sure all the soil is clean and everything is taken out of there, and it's.
Well, we do have, there is intelligent telemetry in the tank, and there's a test that's done every Sunday night. So there is a pressure test that's done, a leak test that's done automatically, and we have to report that to the fire marshal, regularly. Not to pick on the police department, but then they pump fuel during the test, and then it's like.
In your spare time, could you
before tomorrow
give us the number just so that
tank replacement
we know
and
it's coming?
Yeah.
Put a collection plate out at the 4th of July.
So we can start our bake sales for that one.
Buy those lottery tickets.
Yes, you volunteer.
Anything
Okay,
else
how
for
many-
fleet?
How many ARs are we talking about per year, and how much? Total of what now? What was that dollar amount?
We're for 6,000.
Or for 6,000.
6,000.
We are going to have the taste of Westmont dunk tank, Mayor. Sorry.
Yeah, right. Here we come.
I think we should put the police officers in that.
At least the chief.
Yeah, right.
Is there anything else for the fleet, as we're all getting a little punchy here at 5 to 10? Anything, okay, we can go on to health and sanitation. Not much.
It's a Public Works Division, but there's,
Yeah.
I don't.
Just because we have nowhere else to really put it.
But it's in the tab, so
Yeah.
just go with it.
But there's only two items on there, and they're contractual, items that we solicit and want, the refuse collection and, vector control or mosquito abatement. The additional one is there's a certain amount of treatment that you have that you have a base fixed number of treatments for the year, and then if you have a problem season or special event type thing, that's what the additional treatment line items for is to use at the discretion, or as needed, I should say.
Okay.
All right, Fred.
Several.
Mosquitoes or pests?
All right.
Take $20.
That actually concludes the general fund now. We had planned to hopefully get through convention and tourism. Did you want to continue on? It's a couple minutes before 10. Did you want to stop here and resume tomorrow starting with the convention and tourism
Because
fund?
we should be able to blast through most of these, except for fire.
Yeah, tomorrow we'll start with fire and then would proceed on all the funds that we have left. Our convention and tourism, EBST, and then we do have vehicle and capital, which should take
that'll
a
take a
while.
long time.
Water, and then motor fuel and IMRF, which should be fairly straightforward. So we have a couple, 2 or 3 that would take a little bit of time. The others would be fairly straightforward, or should be.
I was going to color it in.
Any feeling for continuing or stopping? Somebody, anybody? Not my decision.
Call it a night.
We're saying call it a night, stop at the general fund?
Night.
I mean, we'll finish it up
I mean,
tomorrow.
we've been here since 7. You guys have been here since early this morning.
Well, if we don't do it tonight, we do it tomorrow night, so.
You got to do it one night or the other.
Right, okay.
Doesn't really matter.
Well, then we can stop now at the end of the general fund and resume tomorrow, first with the fire, which we still do have to do for general fund, but we've completed for this evening what we can, and then resume with convention tourism fund and go on from there then. Any questions or comments or requests?
Just one. I know Trustee Emery had talked early on about looking at a cigarette tax, and then I wondered if we could add to that a liquor tax for consumed on premises, just to explore it.
We'll make notes of that, to do some preliminary research. We did look a little bit into the cigarette tax and did not have any communities in DuPage County that we were able to find that had a cigarette tax. Woodridge had a business license tax that included cigarette, but nothing else. So, but we can continue to do more research and see if we can find anything else. And then look at liquor.
All right.
Sounds good.
Just to see.
Closing comments?
No, nice job, thank you.
Yep, very nice.
One.
Good treats.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Oh, wait, we got to wait for the mayor.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Aye.
Aye. Are we doing aye or are we doing roll call?
I don't know.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.